The click of my heels echoed through our empty foyer as I wheeled my carry-on toward the kitchen. After 3 days of back-to-back meetings in Boston, all I wanted was to surprise Alan with takeout from our favorite Thai place and crawl into bed early. I'm Sawyer, and until that moment, I thought I had it all figured out. Successful real estate business, loving husband, close-knit family. Funny how life can shatter everything you believe in the span of 30 seconds. The first sign something was wrong, music drifting from upstairs. Alan never plays music during the day. The second, a woman's laughter, my sister Georgia's unmistakable laugh, floating down the stairwell. My stomach clenched as I climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. The bedroom door was cracked open, spilling warm lamplight into the hallway. I pushed it wider, and the world stopped spinning. There they were, tangled in our sheets, my husband and my baby sister. "Oh, God," Georgia gasped, scrambling to cover herself. Alan jumped up, sheet wrapped around his waist, face drained of color. "Sawyer," he stammered, "you're home early." I didn't scream, didn't cry, just turned and walked out, their voices calling after me as I descended the stairs with mechanical precision. "Sawyer, wait! Please, let us explain." George's footsteps thundered behind me. I spun around. "Explain what? How long you've been fucking my husband in my bed?" "It's not like that," she pleaded, now wearing Alan's shirt. "We fell in love. We didn't mean for this to happen." A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me. "Love? That's what you're calling this?" Alan appeared at the top of the stairs, hastily dressed. "We were going to tell you. We just needed time to figure things out." "How considerate of you both." My voice was ice. "How long?" They exchanged glances. Georgia spoke first. 8 months. 8 months. 8 months of family dinners, girls' nights, couples' vacations, 8 months of lies. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Alan caught my arm. "Where are you going?" I jerked away from his touch. Don't you dare touch me." "Mom knows," Georgia blurted out. "She's been helping us. Figure out how to tell you." The final betrayal. My mother. Of course she knew. Of course she helped them. I drove straight to her house, hands shaking on the steering wheel. Found her in her garden, pruning roses like it was any other afternoon. "Did you know?" I demanded, stalking across the lawn. She straightened slowly, brushing dirt from her gardening gloves. "I assume you found out about Alan and Georgia." "Did you? No?" "Yes." She set down her shears. "And before you start, you need to understand." "Understand what?" "That my entire family has been lying to my face for months. Georgia and Alan have something special," she said, her voice maddeningly calm. "Sometimes love doesn't follow the rules we set for it. You've always been the strong one, Sawyer. The independent one. Georgia, she needs this. Needs him." I stared at her, this woman who'd raised me, taught me about loyalty and family. "You're actually defending them?" "I'm trying to help you see the bigger picture. Georgia's pregnant." The world tilted sideways. I grabbed the garden fence to steady myself. 3 months along, she continued. "They're getting married as soon as your divorce is final. I know it hurts now, but..." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop." "Sweetheart." "No, you don't get to sweetheart me. Not after this." I backed away from her. "You chose them. You helped them destroy my marriage, and you chose them. I chose what was best for this family." "This family," I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "There is no family anymore. You made sure of that." I drove aimlessly for hours, ending up at the beach where Alan and I had our first date. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. My phone buzzed continuously. Messages from Alan, Georgia, my mother. I turned it off. Sitting there, watching waves crash against the shore, something crystallized inside me. They thought they knew me, strong, independent Sawyer who would eventually understand, who would forgive and forget for the sake of family harmony. They had no idea what I was capable of. I pulled out my work phone. the one they didn't have the number for, and called Sydney, my mentor in the real estate business. "I need your help," I said when she answered. "I need to know everything about property acquisition, especially regarding mortgages and silent ownership." "Sawyer, what's going on?" "I'm about to teach my family a lesson about consequences. I watched the last rays of sunlight disappear beneath the horizon, and I need to do it in a way they'll never see coming." "First rule of strategic acquisition," Sydney said, sliding a stack of papers across her desk, "is to make sure your target never sees you coming." 2 weeks had passed since my world imploded. I'd moved into a downtown apartment, filed for divorce, and thrown myself into learning everything Sydney could teach me. Her office, with its wall-to-wall windows overlooking the city, had become my sanctuary. "Look at this," she pointed to a property listing. "Your sister and Alan just applied for a business loan to purchase the Riverside Plaza. It's their dream project, luxury condos with retail space." I leaned forward. "How did you get this information?" "I have friends at the bank." Sydney's smile was razor-sharp. "The loan hasn't been approved yet, but it will be, given the family business's strong financials." "The family business that my mother handed to them on a silver platter," I muttered. "Exactly. But here's what they don't know." Sydney pulled up another document. "The current owner of Riverside Plaza is desperate to sell. His daughter's medical bills are piling up, and he needs cash fast. He'll take the first solid offer." I studied the numbers. "You think we should buy it before they can?" "Better." Sydney's eyes gleamed. "We buy it through a shell company, then lease it to them at premium rates. They'll be too invested in their dream project to walk away." My phone buzzed. Another message from Jessie, my best friend, asking to meet. I ignored it. "Won't they recognize my involvement?" "That's why we're setting up multiple corporations. On paper, they'll be dealing with Ocean View Properties, not Sawyer." I sat back, considering. "What about the family business? Mother made George a CEO last week." "Ah." Sydney pulled out another file. "That's where it gets interesting. I had my accountant friend look into their books. They're not as stable as they appear. George has been making risky investments, counting on the Riverside project to bail them out." A knock at the door interrupted us. Jessie stood there, looking determined. "We need to talk," he said. Sydney gathered her papers. "I'll give you 2 a minute." Once she left, Jessie sat across from me. "You're not answering anyone's calls." "George is worried sick." "George is worried?" I laughed. "That's rich. Look, I know they hurt you, but this silent treatment isn't helping anyone. Your mother asked me to—" "Of course she did." I stood up, pacing. "Let me guess, she wants me to be the bigger person? Accept their love and play happy families? They made a mistake. A mistake." I whirled on him. "A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. They had an 8-month affair, Jessie. In my bed. While I was working my ass off to build our future." He sighed. "What are you planning, Sawyer? These meetings with Sydney, the new corporations you're setting up, I know you're up to something." "I'm rebuilding my life, that's all." "Really? Because I heard through the grapevine that Ocean View Properties just made an offer on Riverside Plaza. The same property Georgia and Alan have been eyeing for months." I kept my face neutral. "It's a free market." "Don't do this," he pleaded. "Don't become like them." "I'm nothing like them." I walked to the window, watching the city below. They destroyed what was mine. I'm just playing by their rules now. My phone buzzed again. An email from Sydney's contact at the bank. The Riverside Plaza offer had been accepted. "I have to go," I told Jessie. "Meeting with my lawyer." "Sawyer, please." "Thanks for checking on me." I cut him off. "But I know what I'm doing." After he left, Sydney returned with a bottle of champagne. "Congratulations, new owner of Riverside Plaza." We were pouring glasses when my work phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Miss Sawyer from Ocean View Properties?" a man's voice asked. "Speaking." "This is Alan Knight. I understand you just purchased Riverside Plaza." My hand tightened on the phone. "That's correct. My company is very interested in leasing the entire property. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss terms. Sydney was watching me intently. I took a deep breath. Of course, Mr. Knight. My assistant will send you our standard lease agreement. The rates are non-negotiable. I'm sure we can come to some arrangement. The rates are non-negotiable, I repeated firmly. Take it or leave it. There was a pause. We'll take it. After hanging up, I downed my champagne in one gulp. Phase 1 complete, Sydney said. Ready for Phase 2? I nodded, pulling out the documents she'd prepared earlier. Time to look into their other properties, every single one. Remember, Sydney cautioned, revenge is a long game. Patience is key. Don't worry. I smiled, thinking of Georgia and Alan signing away their future without realizing it. I can be very patient. The lease payments are killing us. Alan's voice drifted through the restaurant's partition. We need to increase tenant rents across all properties to cover it. I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. I hadn't planned on eavesdropping during my lunch break, but here they were, 2 booths away, discussing business with Jessie. That's a risky move, Jessie replied. The market's already stretched thin. Push too hard and you'll lose good tenants. We don't have a choice, Georgia said. The baby's due in 4 months, and the renovation costs at Riverside are higher than expected. I slid lower in my booth, grateful for the tall partition. Jessie had been trying to broker peace between us for weeks, but I hadn't known he was actively working with them. What about your mother? Jessie asked. Can't she help? She's already leveraged everything she could, Alan sighed. The family business is our responsibility now. Georgia's voice cracked. I just wish Sawyer would talk to us. Maybe if she understood. Understood what? Jessie's tone sharpened. That you betrayed her, that you're running her father's company into the ground. That's not fair, Georgia protested. We're trying our best. Your best? Jessie laughed bitterly. You're planning to raise rents on working families to cover your mistakes. That's not your best, that's desperate. My phone buzzed, Sydney texting about another property we'd identified. I needed to leave before they spotted me, but I was riveted to my seat. Look, Alan said, we know we messed up with Sawyer, but this is business. We need solutions, not lectures. Fine. Here's a solution. Sell Riverside Plaza. Cut your losses. We can't, Georgia said. Ocean View Properties lease terms are ironclad. Breaking it would bankrupt us. I smiled despite myself. Sydney's legal team had done excellent work on that contract. Then find another way, Jessie insisted, because if you go through with these rent hikes, you'll hurt a lot of innocent people. Their voices lowered, and I took the opportunity to slip out, leaving cash on the table. Outside, I bumped straight into Collins Harris, one of their tenants I'd been monitoring. Ms. Sawyer? He looked surprised. I've been trying to reach someone at the management office. I knew why. Georgia and Alan had already started implementing small rent increases at their other properties. What's wrong, Mr. Harris? They're raising my rent by 30%. He ran a hand through his greying hair. My wife's on disability. We can't afford it, but we can't afford to move either. My chest tightened. Collins wasn't part of my revenge plan. He was collateral damage. Have you spoken with the property managers? They won't even return my calls. He pulled out a notice. We have 30 days to either pay or leave. My daughters are in the middle of their school year. Before I could respond, Georgia and Alan emerged from the restaurant. They spotted us immediately. Sawyer, Georgia stepped forward, one hand on her now visible baby bump. I turned away, but Collins spoke up. Mr. Knight, Mrs. Knight, please, about the rent increase. Submit your concerns in writing to the office, Alan said dismissively, still staring at me. Sawyer, can we please talk? I have nothing to say to either of you. I started walking away. You can't avoid us forever, Georgia called after me. We're still family. I spun around. Family, is that what you call this? Jessie emerged from the restaurant, tension visible in his stance. You want to talk? I continued, anger burning through my careful plans. Fine. Let's talk about how you're destroying people's lives to cover your own mistakes. Let's talk about Collins here, whose family you're about to make homeless. Business decisions aren't personal, Alan said stiffly. No? Funny how everything was personal when you were sleeping with my sister in my bed. Georgia flinched. Please, Sawyer, we never meant to get caught. I laughed. Save it. I'm done listening to your excuses. I turned to Collins. Mr. Harris, expect a call from my office this afternoon. We'll figure something out. As I walked away, I heard Jessie. You two really don't get it, do you? She's not the same person you knew. You broke something in her. Back at my office, I called Sydney. We need to accelerate our timeline, I said. They're planning to raise rents across all properties. That works in our favor, Sydney replied. The more desperate they get, the more mistakes they'll make. There's something else. I hesitated. I need to protect their current tenants somehow. Set up a fund maybe, or... Sawyer, Sydney's voice softened. Don't lose focus. This is business. I looked at Collins's notice on my desk. No, this is personal. And if I'm going to destroy them, I'm going to do it right. The annual Riverside Business Association Gala wasn't my scene anymore, but Sydney insisted I attend. Know your enemy, she'd said, handing me an invitation. So here I was, wearing a black cocktail dress and a blonde wig, playing the role of Sydney's associate, Sarah. From my position near the bar, I had a perfect view of Georgia, holding court with local business owners. Her baby bump was prominently displayed in an expensive maternity gown, Alan hovering protectively nearby. They're bleeding money, Sydney murmured, appearing beside me. 3 more properties just went underwater on their mortgages. What about the tenant protection fund we set up? Already helping 20 families relocate, including the Harris family. She sipped her champagne. But that's not why we're here. Watch your mother. I spotted Jocelyn across the room, deep in conversation with a bank executive I recognized. Her gestures were animated, desperate. She's trying to secure another loan, Sydney explained, but after our anonymous tip about their financial irregularities, no bank will touch them. A familiar voice behind us made me stiffen. Sydney, I didn't expect to see you here. Jesse approached, his eyes narrowing slightly at my disguise. Sydney squeezed my arm in warning. Jesse, have you met my associate Sarah? Can't say that I have. His gaze locked with mine, though she looks remarkably familiar. Before he could say more, commotion erupted near the entrance. Collins Harris stood there, looking out of place in his worn suit. Mr. Knight, he called out. Mrs. Knight, you can't keep ignoring us. Security moved toward him, but he continued. 20 families losing their homes because of your greed. Georgia paled, clutching her stomach. Alan stepped forward. Remove him immediately. You're not the people I thought you were, Collins shouted as security dragged him out. Your father would be ashamed of what you've done to his company. The room fell silent. I watched my mother rush to George's side, while Alan tried to smooth things over with their guests. Well, Jessie said quietly, that was quite a scene, wasn't it, Sawyer? I froze. Sydney intervened smoothly. I think you're mistaken. This is... Save it. Jessie pulled me aside, away from curious onlookers. I've known you 20 years. You think I wouldn't recognize you behind that wig? Keep your voice down. Why are you here? What's your endgame? Before I could answer, George's voice rang out. Oh! She doubled over, grabbing her stomach. The baby, Alan called out. Someone call an ambulance. The room erupted in chaos. As medical personnel arrived, I slipped out to the balcony, needing air. Jessie followed. It's not real, I said before he could speak. She used to pull the same trick when we were kids. Fake a fainting spell when things got tough. Maybe, but you still care. Or you wouldn't be here in disguise. I'm here because they're destroying everything my father built. I gripped the balcony railing. Did you know he made us promise, on his deathbed, to keep the business and the family? To take care of our tenants? I remember. Georgia was crying when she made that promise. Crying, and now look at them. Jessie leaned against the railing. You know what I think? I think you're not just angry about the affair. You're angry because they betrayed everything you believed in. Inside, The commotion was dying down. Georgia was being helped to a chair, miraculously recovered. "You should have heard them last week," Jessie continued. "After the Harris thing hit the local news, Georgia actually said, 'At least Sawyer never has to know how bad things have gotten.'" I laughed bitterly. "They still think I'm in the dark. They think you've moved away, started fresh." He studied my face. "They have no idea you're the one behind Ocean View Properties, do they? No one does, except Sydney, and now you. And what happens when they find out, when they realize you're the one pushing them toward bankruptcy? They deserve it. Maybe they do." Jessie straightened. "But this revenge plot, it's changing you, Sawyer. The woman I know wouldn't hide in the shadows. The woman you knew died the day she found her sister in bed with her husband. No." He touched my arm gently. "She's still in there, and she's better than this cloak and dagger stuff." Inside, Georgia was making a show of refusing the ambulance, playing the brave mother-to-be. "You want me to confront them openly?" I asked. "I want you to be you, the Sawyer who fights her battles in the light." I watched my family through the glass doors, mother, sister, ex-husband, all playing their parts in this elaborate drama. "Maybe you're right," I said finally. "Maybe it's time to step out of the shadows." "What are you planning?" I smiled, thinking of the documents Sydney had shown me earlier. "I think it's time for a family reunion, a very public one." "They're announcing another rent increase today," Sydney said, spreading the morning paper across my desk. 50% this time. I scanned the headline. "Local business owners face criticism over aggressive rent hikes." Below was a photo of Georgia and Alan, both looking appropriately concerned while defending their difficult but necessary business decisions. "They're getting desperate," I said. "The Riverside Plaza renovations are bleeding them dry." "About that," Sydney pulled out her tablet. "Look what our investigators found." She showed me photos of the construction site. Instead of the luxury upgrades they'd promised their investors, the work was shoddy, with cheap materials and cut corners everywhere. "They're pocketing the difference," Sydney explained, using it to cover their other properties' losses. My phone buzzed. Jessie calling again. I ignored it. "That's fraud," I said. "Yes, and there's more." Sydney pulled up another document. "Remember that charitable foundation your father set up for employee education? Georgia's been dipping into it." The rage I'd been carefully controlling burst free. I grabbed my car keys. "Where are you going?" "To their office. This ends now." "Sawyer, wait." But I was already out the door. 20 minutes later, I stormed into the building that used to be my second home. The receptionist's eyes widened. "Ms. Sawyer, they're in a meeting." I pushed past her into the main conference room. Georgia, Alan, and my mother sat with a group of investors. They all froze mid-sentence. "Sawyer?" Georgia stood awkwardly, one hand on her belly. "What are you doing here? Protecting our father's legacy?" I tossed the construction photos onto the table. "Want to explain these to your investors?" Alan quickly gathered the photos. "This is a private meeting." "Is it? Like the private way you've been embezzling from the employee education fund?" The investors started murmuring. Mother stood up. "Sawyer, that's enough." "No, it's not nearly enough." I turned to the investors. "Did they tell you they're using substandard materials at Riverside? That they're pocketing the difference?" "These are baseless accusations," Alan said, but his face had gone pale. "Really? Should we call the building inspector? I'm sure he'd love to see these photos." Georgia stepped toward me. "Please, Sawyer, whatever you think you know." "I know everything." I met her eyes. "I know about the fraudulent loan applications, the misappropriated funds, the illegal rent increases." "You've been investigating us." Mother's voice was sharp. "Someone had to. You were too busy helping them destroy everything Dad built." One of the investors stood up. "I think we need to suspend this meeting pending an audit." "No, wait," Alan protested. "We can explain." "Explain what?" I cut in. "How you're bankrupting the company to cover your own greed. How you're evicting families who've lived in our properties for decades." The conference room door opened and Jesse rushed in. "Sawyer, stop." "Why? So they can keep pretending they're the victims." "Because you're about to reveal your own hand," he said quietly. The room went silent. Georgia looked between us. "What's he talking about?" I straightened my spine. "Ocean View Properties. It's mine." The color drained from Alan's face. "What?" "I own Riverside Plaza. I'm your landlord, and I have proof of every illegal thing you've done since taking over this company." Mother sank into her chair. "You've been behind everything." "Not everything. You did most of it yourselves. I just made sure you had enough rope to hang yourselves." The investors were leaving now, muttering about lawyers and audits. Georgia grabbed my arm. "Why? Why would you do this to us?" I jerked away from her touch. "You really have to ask. You took everything from me, my husband, my family, my company. Did you think I'd just disappear?" "We never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did, and now you're hurting innocent people too." I turned to the remaining investors. "Check your emails. I've sent documentation of everything I've found. Do with it what you will." Alan stepped forward. "You've destroyed us." "No." I met his gaze steadily. "You did that yourselves. I just made sure everyone would know the truth." As I turned to leave, Mother called out, "He would be ashamed of you, Sawyer. Your father would be ashamed of what you've done to this family." I stopped at the door. "No, Mother. He'd be ashamed of what this family did to his legacy, and now everyone will know exactly who's responsible." Jesse followed me out. In the elevator, he finally spoke. "Feel better?" "Not yet." I checked my phone. Sydney had texted that phase 2 was ready, but I will soon. "What else are you planning?" I thought of the press conference scheduled for tomorrow, where I'd announce Ocean View Properties' new tenant protection program. "Justice," I said as the elevator doors opened. "Real justice this time." The press conference room buzzed with anticipation. Reporters filled every seat, cameras flashing as Sydney introduced me to the podium. In the back, I spotted Jesse slipping in quietly. "Good morning," I began. "I'm Sawyer, CEO of Ocean View Properties. Today, I'm announcing our new tenant protection initiative, starting with a complete reversal of all recent rent increases across our managed properties." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A reporter raised her hand. "Including Riverside Plaza?" "Especially Riverside Plaza," I smiled. "Additionally, we're establishing a $5 million fund to assist displaced tenants with relocation costs and down payments." The door burst open. Georgia waddled in, followed by Alan and my mother. Perfect timing. "You can't do this," Georgia shouted. "You're trying to bankrupt us." Cameras swiveled toward them. I maintained my composure. "I believe we have some unexpected guests. Georgia, Alan, Mother. Would you like to join me up here? Make this a real family discussion." Alan stepped forward. "This is a publicity stunt. She's using these tenants as pawns in her revenge plot." "Revenge?" I gestured to Collins Harris, who stood up from his seat in the front row. "Mr. Harris, would you like to tell everyone about your experience with the current management?" Collins approached the microphone. "They raised our rent by 50%. When we couldn't pay, they gave us 3 days to leave. My wife, my kids, all of us. We'd lived there 12 years. "That's business," Alan protested. "Market forces." "Market forces," I interrupted, "like the fraudulent loan applications you submitted, or the construction shortcuts at Riverside Plaza." More cameras flashed. Mother pushed forward. "Sawyer, stop this immediately." "Why? Afraid of the truth coming out?" I pulled out a folder. "Like the truth about Dad's educational foundation, the one Georgia's been stealing from." Georgia clutched her stomach, her usual dramatic move. "The stress, the baby." "Oh, save it," I snapped. "Your fake contractions might work on others, but I grew up watching you perfect that act." A reporter stood up. "Are you saying the current management has been embezzling funds?" "I'm saying," I held up a USB drive, "that everything is documented here. Financial records, fraudulent applications, proof of misappropriated charitable funds. I'm turning it all over to the district attorney's office today." "You'd send your own sister to jail?" Mother's voice cracked. "You'd let her steal from children's education funds," I countered. "Dad set up that foundation to help employees' kids go to college. How many dreams has she stolen?" Alan stepped to the podium. "This is a family matter that's gotten out of hand. My wife and I—" "Ex-wife," I corrected. "Or did you forget you're still legally married to me while playing house with my sister?" The room erupted in questions. Cameras clicked frantically. "Yes," I continued, "the current management team consists of my ex-husband and my sister, who had an affair while I was building this company. My mother knew and helped them hide it. Now they're destroying everything my father built." Georgia started crying. Real tears this time. "Please, Sawyer, think about the baby." "I am thinking about the baby and all the other children affected by your greed." I turned back to the reporters. "Ocean View Properties is implementing immediate changes. All eviction notices are suspended. Rent rates will return to previous levels. The Tenant Protection Fund begins today." "You'll destroy us," Alan said. "No, I'm saving what's left of my father's legacy." I nodded to Sydney, who started distributing packets to the press. "You'll find complete documentation of our new initiatives here, along with evidence of the current management's misconduct." "This isn't what Dad would have wanted," Georgia pleaded. "Really?" I pulled out one last document. "This is Dad's last letter to me, written a week before he died. He knew something was wrong with the company books. He asked me to protect his life's work." I met Mother's eyes. "To protect the families who trusted us." Mother's face crumpled. For the first time, I saw real shame there. "The DA's office will be in touch," I told them. "I suggest you get lawyers." As security escorted them out, Jessie approached the podium. "You okay?" "Getting there." I turned back to the reporters. "Any questions?" An hour later, in my office, Sydney poured champagne. "That went better than expected." "Did it?" I watched the news coverage on my laptop. "They're still my family." "Family who betrayed you," she reminded me. Jessie knocked and entered. "Georgia's being admitted to the hospital. Real contractions this time." Something twisted in my chest. "Is she okay?" "Since when do you care?" "I don't." But my hand shook as I picked up my glass. "I can't care anymore." Jessie sat down. "You know, revenge doesn't have to mean burning every bridge." "Those bridges were already ash," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. My phone buzzed. A text from Mother. "The baby's coming. Please come. Despite everything, you're still her sister." I stared at the message, feeling the weight of choices yet to come. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before me as I followed the signs to labor and delivery. Jessie walked beside me, carrying the small teddy bear he'd insisted on buying from the gift shop. "You don't have to do this," he said. "I know." I stopped outside room 412, hearing Georgia's muffled cries through the door. "But I do." Inside, Mother sat beside Georgia's bed while Alan paced nervously. They all froze when they saw me. "Sawyer?" Georgia's face was streaked with tears, hair plastered to her forehead. "You came?" Before I could answer, she doubled over with another contraction. Without thinking, I moved to her side, taking her hand. "Breathe," I said. "Remember how Mom taught us? Like when you had those panic attacks in high school." She squeezed my hand hard, following my breathing pattern until the contraction passed. "Why are you here?" Alan demanded. "Haven't you done enough damage?" "Alan," Mother warned, "not now." "No, he's right." I released Georgia's hand. "I shouldn't have come." "Wait," Georgia grabbed my wrist. "Please stay. I need to tell you something before." Another contraction hit. The doctor entered, checking Georgia's progress. "It's time to push." "Sawyer," Georgia pleaded, "stay, please." I looked at Alan, who stood rigid by the window. "It's not my place." "Yes, it is," Mother said quietly. "You're her sister." 2 hours later, amid tears and screams and more hand-crushing than I thought possible, my niece entered the world. They placed her in Georgia's arms, this tiny red-faced bundle who knew nothing of betrayal or revenge. Her name is Emma, Georgia whispered. After Dad. The room went silent. Our father's middle name had been Emmanuel. Can you... Georgia looked at me. Can you hold her, just for a minute? Before I could refuse, she was placing Emma in my arms. The baby's eyes opened, Dad's eyes, looking up at me with innocent trust. I'm so sorry, Georgia said softly. For everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know. I kept my eyes on Emma. You're right, it doesn't change anything. The DA called, Alan said. They're launching a formal investigation. Good. I handed Emma back to Georgia. You should be investigated. We'll lose everything, Mother said. You already lost everything. I moved toward the door. The moment you chose lies over loyalty. Wait. Georgia struggled to sit up. There's something you need to know. About Dad's letter. I turned back. What about it? He wrote one to me too. The week before he died. She nodded to Mother, who pulled an envelope from her purse. I've been too ashamed to show anyone. I took the letter, recognizing Dad's handwriting. My dearest Georgia, I see you struggling with the books, trying to hide the mistakes. I know you're afraid of disappointing everyone, but secrets have a way of destroying what we hold dear. Your sister has the strength to help, if you'll only trust her. Remember, family isn't about being perfect, it's about being honest. Love, Dad. My hand shook. You had this the whole time? I was too proud to ask for help, Georgia whispered, then too ashamed of what I'd done. By the time Alan and I... She trailed off. You could have come to me, before any of this. I know, but I was jealous. You were always the strong one, the successful one. I wanted to prove I could handle things myself. Emma started crying. As Georgia rocked her, Alan stepped forward. I never meant for any of this to happen, he said. The affair, the fraud. It all spiraled out of control. Save it for the DA. I handed the letter back to Georgia. I'm done here. Sawyer, Mother called as I reached the door. What your father said about family and honesty, it goes both ways. I paused. Meaning? Meaning revenge isn't honest either. It's just another form of hiding. Jessie, who'd been silent throughout, finally spoke. She's right, you know. I looked at my niece still crying in Georgia's arms, at Alan's defeated posture, at Mother's pleading eyes. I'm not hiding anymore, I said. Everything I've done is now in the open. The DA will investigate. Justice will be served. I met Georgia's eyes. But Emma deserves better than a family built on revenge and resentment. What are you saying? Georgia asked. I'm saying, maybe it's time for all of us to be honest, really honest, about everything. Including Ocean View Properties? Alan asked. Including that. I took a deep breath. We'll meet tomorrow, all of us, with our lawyers, and we'll lay everything on the table. Thank you, Georgia whispered. Don't thank me yet. I opened the door. The truth might hurt more than the revenge. As Jessie and I walked out, he squeezed my shoulder. You did good in there. Did I? Or am I just trading one kind of revenge for another? No, he said. You're choosing truth over pain. That's not revenge. That's healing. The conference room felt smaller with all the lawyers present. Sydney sat to my right, Jessie to my left, while Georgia, Alan, and Mother faced us across the table. Emma slept peacefully in her carrier, oblivious to the tension. Let's begin, my lawyer said, spreading documents across the table. Ms. Sawyer has a proposal. I cleared my throat. Ocean View Properties will take control of all company assets. Absolutely not, Alan's lawyer protested. Let me finish. I pulled out the tenant protection agreement. In exchange, all criminal charges will be dropped. The company will be restructured, with a board of trustees overseeing operations. Georgia leaned forward. What does that mean exactly? It means, Sydney explained, that none of us will have unilateral control. Every major decision requires board approval. Who's on this board? Mother asked. Me, Sydney, Jessie, and... I took a deep breath. You, Mother. because Dad would have wanted you involved. The room fell silent. Alan shifted uncomfortably. What about us? You and Georgia will retain positions in the company, but under supervision. All financial decisions will be reviewed, and you'll both enter a repayment program for the embezzled funds. That's surprisingly generous, Georgia's lawyer said. It's not generosity. I looked at Emma. It's pragmatism. This company needs to survive, not just for us, but for everyone who depends on it. Mother dabbed her eyes. Your father would be proud. Don't. I held up my hand. This isn't forgiveness. It's business. But it could be a start, Jessie suggested quietly. Georgia reached for Alan's hand. What about the tenants? The ones we hurt? The protection program stays. Rents return to previous levels. And I slid another document forward. You two will personally oversee the restoration of the Education Foundation. Working with the families we wronged, Alan realized. Exactly. Face to face. No hiding behind lawyers or managers. Sydney opened her laptop. The press release is ready. We can announce the restructuring today. Wait, Georgia said. Before we sign anything, I need to say something. She stood unsteady on her feet. What we did to you, Sawyer, the affair, the lies, everything, it wasn't just a betrayal. It was cruel. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for understanding. I'm just... She glanced at Emma. I'm asking for a chance to show her a better way. By accepting consequences, Alan added, standing beside her. Real ones. I studied them both. You'll have to earn back every bit of trust, not just mine, but the community's. We know, they said together. Mother reached across the table. And I need to earn back your trust too. I failed both my daughters by choosing sides, by enabling lies instead of demanding truth. I didn't take her hand, but I didn't pull away when she touched my arm. The board meetings will be weekly, I said, full transparency, no exceptions. The lawyers exchanged documents. As we signed, Emma woke up crying. Without thinking, I reached for her, and Georgia let me lift her out. Hey there, little one, I whispered. We're building something better for you, something honest. Jessie smiled. Something your grandfather would be proud of. As if on cue, Sydney pulled out one final document. Speaking of which, what's this? Mother asked. The official renaming proposal. I bounced Emma gently. Chavez Family Holdings, because that's what Dad always wanted. His name, his values, his legacy. But with proper oversight this time, Sydney added firmly. The lawyers left first, followed by Sydney to handle the press. Alan and Georgia lingered by the door. Thank you, Georgia said, not for forgiveness, but for possibility. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Mother was the last to leave. Sawyer, that letter from your father, the one about protecting his legacy, what about it? He wrote it to you because he knew you'd find a way to save us all, even from ourselves. After everyone left, Jessie stayed. You okay? He asked. No. I sat heavily in my chair. But maybe that's good. Maybe okay isn't what we need right now. What do we need? Truth, justice, and... I thought of Emma's tiny hand gripping my finger. Maybe something like hope. Hope looks good on you, he smiled. Better than revenge. Much better. He helped me gather the documents. So, ready to build something new? I looked around the conference room, where so many family meetings had been held, where so many decisions, good and bad, had shaped our lives. Not new, I said, just better, stronger, more honest. Like your father wanted. No. I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. Like we all need. Outside, the press waited for the announcement. But in that moment, in that room, something shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, but possibility. And maybe that was the best revenge of all.
As the sun poured its golden light through the dining room window, casting a warm glow over the oak table where we sat, The aroma of Mom's homemade lasagna enveloped us. The soft clinking of silverware against plates mingled with the scent, crafting a backdrop of comfort and togetherness. It was one of those perfect family moments, poised on the edge of warmth and mutual joy. However, this serene scene was about to be disrupted in a way none of us could have predicted. Eliana, my vibrant younger sister, was the embodiment of joy and mischief, her laughter a constant melody in our home. Her eyes sparkled with playful mischief as she playfully teased Dad and me, calling us sticks in the mud with a wide, infectious grin. Dad and I couldn't help but exchange amused glances, swept up in the infectious energy of Eliana's spirit. But just as we found ourselves sinking into the comforting rhythm of family life, Mom dropped a startling revelation that cracked our harmonious bubble. "Eliana will inherit everything from Dad," she said, her voice slicing through the room and leaving a heavy silence in its wake. My heart stuttered, struggling to grasp the full weight of her words. Eliana's face mirrored my shock, her usually lively expression replaced with one of utter disbelief. Dad, the steady pillar of our family, looked down, his confusion apparent. "What do you mean, Mom?" I managed to ask, my voice a mere whisper, lost in the gravity of the moment. Mom's stern gaze met mine, her expression unyielding as she explained that Eliana's personality mirrored Dad's, marking her as his favored. She shared that Eliana, despite her playful nature, tended to be a bit laid back at times, much like Dad, and enjoyed teasing us for our more earnest dispositions. The news landed like a bomb, shattering the evening's peace. Eliana's smile faded, confusion and hurt replacing the joy in her eyes. I looked to Dad, hoping for some sign of explanation, but found none. "Why would you say something like this, Mom?" Eliana's voice trembled, echoing the shock and hurt we all felt. Mom continued, her voice emotionless, explaining that Dad had always had a special connection with Eliana, and it was only fair that she should inherit his legacy. "As for me," she said, "I'd always taken after her responsible, serious, and diligent." The room was charged with a tension so thick it threatened to suffocate the love and warmth we had always shared during our family dinners. In that moment, our family dynamic shifted irreversibly. The revelation not only exposed the undercurrents of favoritism, but also marked the beginning of a new chapter in our lives, one filled with questions, doubts, and the daunting task of navigating these uncharted waters. As the words responsible, serious, and diligent lingered in the air, a heavy tension settled around us. It felt as if Mom had drawn an invisible line, dividing Eliana and me based on personality traits she deemed important. I was struck by a profound sense of rejection and betrayal. It was incomprehensible how my own mother could disregard my feelings so bluntly. "Mom, this isn't right," I found myself saying, my voice quivering with a mix of anger and sorrow. "We're supposed to be a family, united and supportive, not torn apart by favoritism." But Mom stood firm, her decision unwavering. "This is the way it has to be," she declared with finality. "Eliana embodies your father's legacy and will inherit everything. You, on the other hand, will need to carve out your own path." Tears filled Eliana's eyes as she reached under the table to squeeze my hand, a silent show of support and love amidst the unfolding chaos. Yet the damage had been inflicted, revealing a deep rift within our family that felt insurmountable. As dinner continued in a heavy silence, my mind reeled at how an ordinary family gathering had escalated into a pivotal moment, destined to reshape our lives in unforeseeable ways. The emotional aftermath of this conversation was bound to be profound, and I dreaded the lingering effects it would have on our family dynamics. In the days that followed, the tension in our home only intensified. Mom's blatant preference for Eliana over me cast a long shadow over our once tight-knit family unit. Eliana, who had always been my closest ally, now found herself trapped in the middle of this familial storm. Her once constant laughter had faded, replaced by a thoughtful, somber demeanor. She was painfully aware of the growing divide between Mom and me, a burden that weighed heavily on her. One evening, as we retreated to the haven of Eliana's room, surrounded by the vibrant posters and artwork that reflected her spirit, I broke the uncomfortable silence. The room, usually a place of escape from the household's turmoil, felt charged with unspoken words. "Eliana, are you okay?" I asked gently, concern evident in my voice. In a tone laced with worry, I reached out to Eliana, who sighed deeply and settled back on her bed. Her gaze drifted aimlessly to the ceiling, as if it might hold the answers we were both seeking. "I just don't know, sis," she murmured, sadness evident in her voice. "Everything's just fallen apart. It feels like Mom doesn't even see you anymore, and it's tearing me apart." I could only nod in agreement, feeling the weight of our shared pain. "It's tearing me apart too, Eli. I miss how things were between us." Tears began to gather in Eliana's eyes as she faced me, her look filled with love and concern. "You do know that I love you, don't you? None of this mess is your fault." Offering a weak smile, I expressed my gratitude for her constant support. "I love you too, Eli. But it's hard watching you get caught in the middle." She reached for my hand, her grip strong and comforting. "We'll find a way through this mess together, I promise." As time went on, the favoritism Mom showed towards Ilana became more and more apparent. She celebrated even the smallest of Eliana's achievements, while I felt increasingly like a shadow within my own home. This obvious bias was heartbreaking to witness, and it was clear that Mom was intent on establishing a divide in our family. One quiet evening in the living room, Eliana bravely addressed the issue that had been weighing heavily on us. "Mom, why do you always show me favoritism over my sister?" she asked, her voice shaking with a mix of curiosity and fear. Mom's reply was cold and deliberate. "Eliana, you remind me more of your father," she said, her gaze locked on Eliana. "He always had a special belief in you." Unable to contain my frustration any longer, I spoke up. "Mom, this isn't right," I said, my voice heavy with anger. "Your favoritism is tearing our family apart." Mom looked at me, her expression steely. "This is the way things must be," she declared. "Eliana is the bearer of your father's legacy, and you must forge your own path." A heavy silence filled the room, and I shared a look of despair with Eliana. It was evident that Mom was unwavering in her stance, regardless of the pain it inflicted on us. In the days that followed, Eliana and I sought comfort in each other's company, clinging to the bond that had always united us as the fabric of our family seemed to unravel. I couldn't help but reflect on the destructive power of favoritism and love within a family. Eliana often appeared guilty when Mom lavished her with praise, and it was clear she was struggling with her conscience. It was a constant battle to balance our love for our family against the divisive dynamics that had taken root. As the strain of our family's disintegration grew more pronounced, Eliana and I held on to the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, we could heal the deep fissures that had split us apart. Unbeknownst to us, however, the greatest trials lay ahead, poised to challenge the very fabric of our connection in ways we never could have predicted. Time marched on, turning days into weeks, and the underlying tension within our household simmered just beneath the surface. The warm, joyous atmosphere that once defined our home had been replaced by a lingering sense of discomfort and bitterness, exacerbated by the obvious favoritism Mom showed toward Eliana. This heavy air was unexpectedly pierced by a shocking event, the sudden death of our father. The late-night call from the hospital delivered the devastating news that he had suffered a fatal heart attack. The realization that the pillar of our family, the one who had kept us united despite escalating tensions, was no longer with us hit me with overwhelming force. The days that followed were a haze of sorrow as we navigated the murky waters of funeral arrangements and accepted the condolences of friends and family who came to offer their sympathies. Their whispered words of comfort only added to the somber mood that had enveloped our home. Eliana, always vibrant and full of energy, seemed to have retreated into herself, her normally bright hazel eyes now dimmed by grief. On the day of the funeral, the gloomy skies seemed to reflect the heavy sadness in our hearts. Standing before Dad's casket, I was consumed by a profound sense of loss, barely registering the pastor's words. Mom, always stoic and reserved, stood by the casket, her face betraying her grief. Her next words to me were chilling, implying that everything our home, Dad's legacy, would go to Ileana. It was as if Dad's passing had cemented her biased view, leaving me to grapple with her cold indifference at such a poignant time. Following the service, as we hosted a small gathering at our home, the strained dynamic between Mom and me was palpable. Ileana, still overwhelmed by our father's absence, made a heartfelt plea for unity, but Mom's stance remained firm and inflexible. "Your father always had faith in her," she repeated, fixing her gaze on Ileana, asserting that she would be the sole inheritor of his legacy. This assertion, made amidst the raw pain of our loss, felt like an insurmountable barrier, deepening the divide that favoritism had already carved within our family. Witnessing the profound sorrow in Ileana's eyes became too much for me, and gently, I led her away from the crowded reception to the tranquility of the backyard. There, away from the scrutinizing gazes and whispered judgments of our relatives, we sought refuge. "I can't believe she said those things at Dad's funeral," Ileana murmured, her voice thick with grief. I wrapped her in a comforting embrace, trying to shield her from the pain. "It's unbelievable, Eli," I whispered back, feeling her lean into me as tears cascaded down her cheeks. "I miss him terribly, sis, and it's unbearable how Mom is pulling us apart." Standing there together, it hit me. Our family was at a crossroads, torn apart by deep-seated favoritism and unresolved conflicts. The ensuing weeks only confirmed our fears. The chasm within our family widened, with Mom's partiality towards Ileana showing no signs of waning. I felt increasingly alienated in what was supposed to be my sanctuary, while Ileana struggled with the guilt of being the favored one. Our once solid bond was now strained under the toxic dynamics at play. The path forward was shrouded in uncertainty, the looming emotional storm beyond our wildest imaginations. Caught in a tangled web of love, resentment, and grief, the journey towards reconciliation seemed daunting, filled with obstacles we hadn't foreseen. As days turned into weeks, it became painfully clear that the rift caused by favoritism was only deepening, with no attempts from Mom to bridge the divide. Our home, once a haven of happiness, had transformed into a battlefield of emotions. Feeling like an outsider within my own walls, I came to a realization staying was no longer viable. The relentless reminder of my marginalization and the pervasive atmosphere of bitterness were eroding my mental and emotional well-being. After a particularly strained dinner, I faced the heart-wrenching decision to leave. The burden of favoritism and ongoing turmoil was a load too heavy to bear a reality I had never envisioned facing, yet it appeared to be my only escape. As I began to pack up my life in the room that had witnessed my childhood, Ileana walked in, her eyes brimming with sorrow. In the midst of our family's unraveling, she had remained my constant, a beacon of light in the enveloping darkness. "You're really leaving?" she asked, her voice a fragile mix of worry and understanding. I nodded, the weight of my decision pressing down on me. "I must go, Eli," I confessed, the heaviness in my heart making each word a struggle. "Staying here, enduring this treatment. It's just too much. Perhaps my leaving will open Mom's eyes to the consequences of her actions." Ileana's eyes brimmed with tears as she drew me into a tight embrace. "I'll miss you terribly, sis," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Tears mirrored in my eyes as I returned her embrace. "I'll miss you too, Eli. But remember, this changes nothing about how much I love you." We held on to each other, aware that this moment marked a significant turning point in our lives. Parting was excruciating, yet I harbored hope that perhaps, over time, we could heal the deep-seated rifts that had fragmented our family. Leaving the house I had called home for so many years filled me with a complex mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for a family divided by favoritism and conflict, and relief at liberating myself from an environment that no longer felt nurturing or safe. Mom's lack of objection to my departure was telling. It seemed my presence had become more of a burden than a blessing, a painful reminder of unresolved issues she wished to ignore. With a heavy heart, I carried the emotional remnants of a broken family to my new apartment. That first night alone was marked by solitude and introspection. I pondered the difficult choice I had made. leaving behind Eliana, my confidante and sister, which tore at me the most. Yet, amidst the silence, an unexpected laugh escaped me, prompted by the sheer absurdity of our situation. Our family, once a stronghold of love and unity, had disintegrated under the strain of unchecked favoritism and deep-seated resentment. The notion that my departure might somehow catalyze change within our family dynamics was both tragic and strangely comical. As I faced the uncertain path ahead, I understood that stepping away was just the beginning of a personal journey towards healing and self-discovery. I carried with me the lessons of love, the importance of forgiveness, and the intricate dynamics of family relationships, hopeful that, in time, we might find a way to repair the bonds that had suffered so much damage. Leaving the family home was a bittersweet liberation. On one hand, I escaped the toxic environment that had consumed our household. On the other, I grappled with the guilt of leaving Eliana behind in that challenging atmosphere. This decision, though painful, was necessary for my own well-being, a step towards finding peace and rebuilding my life away from the shadows of favoritism and discord. Moving away from the shadow of my mother's favoritism was a double-edged sword. On one side, I felt a sense of liberation, but on the other, guilt and sorrow for leaving Eliana in such a challenging environment weighed down on me. It was a tough decision, made in the pursuit of my own mental and emotional health, yet it burdened me deeply. As I settled into my new, modest apartment, a stark contrast to our family's once grand home, I found a semblance of peace and freedom that had been missing. Despite the change in scenery, the scars of our family's troubles lingered, prompting deep reflections on the past and the painful acknowledgement that my mother's indifference extended even to my father. Her evident preference for Eliana and her relentless pursuit of securing a legacy through her was a difficult truth I had to face to move forward. One evening, a call from Eliana pierced the solitude of my new beginning. Her voice, weary and heavy with emotion, conveyed the strain of our family's ongoing drama. "Sis, I can't bear it anymore," she admitted, her words shaking. "Mom's behavior is suffocating, and I miss you terribly." Her tearful admission tugged at my heartstrings. "I miss you too, Eli," I responded, my voice laden with sadness. "But we must remain strong. Perhaps my departure will prompt Mom to see the impact of her actions." Eliana's faint hope echoed through her sniffles. "I wish for that too, sis. But it's so hard." That night, we shared our fears, hopes, and dreams, bridging the physical gap between us with the unbreakable bond of sisterhood. Despite the distance, our love for each other stood firm against the backdrop of our family's strife. In the time that followed, Eliana and I remained in close contact, providing support to each other amidst the turmoil. It became clear that Mom's partiality towards Eliana hadn't diminished, and her fixation on Eliana's inheritance continued to cause friction. An unexpected visit from Eliana to my apartment brought the situation to a head. Her arrival, marked by tears and a troubled expression, signaled that the family's dynamics had reached a new low. "Sis, you won't believe what's happened," she said, the distress in her voice indicating the gravity of the situation. When Eliana arrived, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and frustration, I could tell something major had happened. We sat down, her hands trembling, and I asked, "What's going on, Eli?" Her reply was so quiet I could barely hear it. "Mom's planning to change her will," she whispered. "She wants to leave everything to me, just like she did with Dad." I was shocked, feeling the unfairness of Mom's actions weigh heavily on me. "That's not right, Eli," I responded, my voice heavy with concern. "She shouldn't continue favoring one of us over the other." Eliana fought back tears, clearly troubled by the situation. "I know, but what can I do?" "I can't change her mind." I offered her a reassuring touch, determined to find a solution together. As we talked into the night, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Despite the daunting favoritism from Mom, I was resolved not to let it destroy our family bond. The laughter I had lost upon leaving was now replaced by a firm resolve to fight for our unity, to overcome any obstacle that came our way. Settling into my new life in a modest apartment, I found a peaceful haven far from the toxic dynamics of our family home. Yet the emotional scars remained, often leading me to reflect on what had driven us apart. The favoritism Mom showed was a painful reality, but it also forced me to face difficult questions about love, loyalty, and the nature of family ties. One evening, as I looked out over the city lights, Eliana called, her voice a mix of frustration and resignation. "I can't handle it anymore," she confessed. "Mom's fixation on her legacy is destroying us." I empathized deeply, understanding her plight. "It's been tough for us both, but we must remain strong and hopeful for a change," I encouraged. Eliana's voice shook as she spoke of missing the family we once were, bringing tears to my eyes. "I miss that too, Eli," I admitted, emotion choking my words. "But remember, we still have each other no matter what." Our conversations turned into a lifeline, a vital connection that allowed Eliana and me to support one another amidst the chaos engulfing our family. Despite the miles between us, our emotional connection remained solid, a true testament to the deep love we shared. As I pondered our family's predicament, I found myself questioning Mom's reasons for her blatant favoritism. Was it an attempt to exert control, a way to secure her legacy, or perhaps something more intricate and complex? Unexpectedly, Mom appeared at my apartment one day, her face a mix of hesitation and remorse. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaking. After a brief hesitation, I welcomed her inside. Sitting across from each other in the tense atmosphere of my small living room, I confronted her. "I don't understand why you're doing this. Why are you dividing our family with your favoritism?" Her gaze fell, and her response came out tremulously. "I don't know, dear. Eliana just reminds me so much of your father, and I wanted to honor his memory." A wave of frustration washed over me at her justification. Mom, favoring one child over another isn't the right way to honor Dad's memory. "It's tearing us apart." Tears filled her eyes, revealing a moment of vulnerability. "I didn't realize how much it was hurting both of you," she whispered. Taking a deep breath, I saw an opportunity for change. "Mom, it's not too late for us to mend things and rebuild our family. We need each other." I dared to hope that this moment could signify a new beginning for us. As time went on, our discussions hinted at the possibility of healing the rifts within our family. Although the scars from the past were deep, the chance for reconciliation slowly started to grow in my heart. Eliana and I maintained our strong bond, continually offering each other support. We held on to the belief that eventually, our family could rediscover the unity and love that once held us together, offering a faint glimmer of hope amid the long-standing turmoil. The possibility of mending our fractured bonds ignited a new hope within us. One night, Eliana's voice buzzed through the phone with unexpected excitement. "Guess what Mom suggested today?" she said, barely containing her enthusiasm. I leaned in, curious. "Tell me," I urged. "She's open to the idea of family therapy," Eliana revealed. The news sparked a wave of optimism within me. "That's a huge step forward," I responded, feeling a surge of hope. "This might be exactly what we need." Eliana shared my sentiment, her relief palpable through the phone. "I'm ready to try anything if it means bringing us all closer again," she declared. As we ventured into the realm of therapy, the journey was anything but easy. It was a path littered with emotional discoveries and tough conversations. Yet, it also paved the way for understanding and reconciliation. In one particularly revealing session, our therapist, Dr. Patel, gently prodded our mother to confront the reasons behind her favoritism. With tears in her eyes, Mom confessed, "I've been clinging to the memory of your father. Seeing him in Eliana, I thought I was honoring him." Eliana's response was to reach for Mom's hand, a gesture that spoke volumes of her maturity and willingness to forgive. "We all miss Dad," she said. "But we can honor him by uniting as a family, not by being torn apart." This moment marked a turning point for us. The air began to clear as years of built-up resentment and pain started to fade, replaced by a growing sense of empathy and open communication. Our family dynamics slowly but surely began to evolve. Mom recognized the damage her favoritism had caused and made a concerted effort to show both Eliana and me equal love and respect. Sitting together in our family home one evening, I couldn't help but notice the dramatic shift in the atmosphere. A genuine warmth and closeness enveloped us, a feeling that had been missing for far too long. We exchanged stories, shared laughter, and even shed tears together, reconnecting on a level I hadn't thought possible. "I'm sorry for the pain I've caused," Mom said, her sincerity touching. "I want us to rebuild our family." Eliana's smile in response was radiant, her eyes reflecting forgiveness and love. "We've all made mistakes," she acknowledged. "What's important is that we're willing to move forward together." That evening, as we embraced, I was filled with gratitude for this opportunity to heal and rebuild. Though the scars of the past remained, the bonds of love and understanding within our family were strengthening day by day. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of forgiveness. The path ahead remained uncertain, yet filled with promise. With continued love, communication, and a shared commitment to change, I believed we could repair the rifts that had once seemed insurmountable and forge a brighter, more united future together. Imagine living a tale where dreams turn into reality, a staggering $500 million inheritance and ownership of a flourishing company. This became our new world when the staff witnessed my sister-in-law, Nora, jubilantly celebrating our family's fortune. The air buzzed with whispers among the employees, thrilled by the news, as Nora declared with a victorious tone, "Silence, please. This is the moment my husband takes over the company, along with a $3 million share of the inheritance." Her announcement set off a ripple of laughter among the employees, curious about the sudden turn of events. Amidst the unfolding drama, my elder brother, Jack, was engrossed in the legal documents handed over by our family's attorney. The color drained from his face as he absorbed the content of our father's will. "Take a look at this," he muttered to Nora, who let out a shriek upon reading the document. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Stella, a 26-year-old integral part of my father's legacy. From a tender age, I watched my father lay the foundation of what today is a thriving business. Despite facing early challenges and debts, his determination never wavered, a quality that inspired me deeply. Even as the business expanded, I yearned to support my mother, who managed the clerical and administrative duties behind the scenes. Encouraged by my parents, I had the freedom to explore any career path post-high school. Yet, my heart was set on contributing to the enterprise my father had dedicated his life to. This conviction only strengthened as I stepped into adulthood. Upon joining the family business, I was fortunate to be mentored by Leo, a seasoned employee. Leo's guidance was invaluable, imparting business fundamentals without treating me differently because I was the president's daughter. This experience enriched my understanding of our operations, shaping my approach to work. Meanwhile, my brother Jack, merely a year my senior, pursued management studies with the aim of succeeding our father. Jack took pride in sharing his future prospects with friends, often sparking discussions about his inevitable role as the company's president. "Why search for a job when I'm destined to lead our family business?" he'd say, exuding confidence about his path to presidency. This story unravels the complexities of inheritance, ambition, and the value of hard work through the lens of a family business. It challenges the notion of entitlement, emphasizing the importance of merit and dedication in leadership roles. As we delve deeper, the journey reveals unexpected twists, shedding light on the true essence of legacy and stewardship. Living a life wrapped in safety and security, my brother Jack was often the envy of his friends. "You're so lucky," one friend said, eyeing the secure future Jack had thanks to our family business. The conversation soon turned to me, Jack's younger sister, sparking questions about potential rivalry for control of the company. "A younger sister?" "Yes, she's there, but she's more of a simple soul, content with her work behind the scenes," Jack explained, somewhat dismissively. Jack had his own way of preparing for leadership, splurging and socializing under the pretext of gaining managerial experience. He was well aware that his prospective role as president made him popular, especially among women who were drawn to his status. Out of many, he chose Nora, the most dazzling of all, as his wife. Their marriage was a spectacle, followed by an extravagant honeymoon and the construction of a grand mansion to commence their opulent life. Nora seemed perfectly happy in her role, living a life of luxury, always getting her way with Jack. Compared to her, my life seemed unremarkable. Working quietly alongside my mother within the company, I was content with my behind-the-scenes role, far removed from the glamour Nora relished. At family gatherings, Nora's gaze would often fall on me, her laughter tinged with condescension. "You really don't fit the image of a CEO's daughter," she'd say, as if the idea was utterly amusing to her. I never saw the appeal of a lavish lifestyle, a concept foreign to Nora. She pitied me, unable to comprehend someone who, despite being born into wealth, showed little interest in extravagance. "Living such a simple life despite your family's wealth. I just can't understand it," she'd comment, as if the concept of not flaunting wealth was alien to her. This contrast in lifestyles underscored our differing values and perspectives. While Nora cherished material wealth and status, I found fulfillment in the quieter, steadfast contribution to our family legacy. It wasn't about the money or the title. It was about being part of something bigger, contributing in a way that was meaningful to me. Being the daughter of the company's president might lead many to believe that I'd be surrounded by admirers, as my brother pointed out. However, I've always valued modesty and treated my colleagues just like anyone else, which might come as a surprise to some. My approach to work and relationships within the company is grounded in mutual respect and learning. I'm fully aware that many of my coworkers possess skills and knowledge far beyond mine. I believe in humility and the importance of every role within our organization, contrary to my brother's belief that a boss should always appear superior to avoid being disrespected by their team. My brother, taken aback by my perspective, criticized my approach, suggesting that a true leader should assert their dominance and delegate all menial tasks to others. This mindset, he argued, was what separated the true leaders within our family from the rest. But when I attempted to defend my stance, emphasizing the value of respecting all team members regardless of their position, my brother abruptly dismissed my views, claiming that such logic made me unattractive in the eyes of potential suitors. Following my brother's harsh words, Nora chimed in, insinuating that my attitude and approach to life would leave me single forever, advising me to strive to be more appealing. My brother even threatened my job security once he assumed control of the company, highlighting our starkly different values and approaches to leadership and personal relationships. After this uncomfortable exchange, my mother offered her support, assuring me that my contributions to the company were invaluable and advising me not to take my brother's criticisms to heart. My father, too, showed his disapproval of my brother's attitude through his stern demeanor. It was clear that my parents did not agree with my brother and Nora's perspectives, leading to a tense period where my brother and his wife avoided our family home. Reflecting on the strain this disagreement caused, I realized that despite the differences in our views and lifestyles, it was important for each of us to live according to our own principles. My brother and Nora continued to indulge in their extravagant lifestyle, dining at upscale restaurants and vacationing at luxurious resorts, perhaps in an effort to cultivate a certain image. Meanwhile, I remained committed to my values, focusing on contributing to our family business in a meaningful and respectful way, cherishing the lessons of humility and teamwork I had learned along the way. Jack was destined to take over as president of our father's corporation, a role he was being groomed for as our father diligently worked to grow his business. However, one evening at home, my father experienced severe chest pains. Concerned, I urged him to stay calm while I called for an ambulance. During those tense moments, he directed me to a letter in a drawer, insisting, "Stella, read this if anything happens to me. The lawyers will handle the rest." His words were barely out before he lost consciousness, and despite being rushed to the hospital, he passed away without waking up again. Jack and Nora, my brother and his wife, were abroad during this crisis and missed our father's final moments. They returned from their vacation 3 days later, just in time for the funeral. Jack's comment, "We're just glad we made it on time. Never thought Dad would pass while we were away," struck me as insensitive. Their nonchalant arrival and failure to acknowledge the efforts my mother and I put into organizing the funeral were disheartening. In a private moment, away from the ears of the company's employees, I confronted Jack about not making an effort to return sooner. His response, void of any apology and blaming pre-booked flights, left me even more frustrated. Yet, in front of our employees, he pledged to honorably take our father's place, a statement that Nora echoed with visible admiration, suggesting that everyone was impressed by Jack's supposed dignity. Despite my irritation with Jack's tardiness and his display of arrogance, I led them, followed by the employees, to the meal ceremony. Jack's behavior remained unchanged, continuing to exude arrogance throughout the event. This moment underscored a stark contrast in values and respect for our father's legacy, challenging the unity within our family and the business at such a pivotal time. During the meal following my father's funeral, Jack questioned the quality of the food, suggesting it was beneath the standard expected for someone of our father's stature. I was taken aback by his criticism, especially since my mother and I had carefully selected the menu in agreement. I told him I didn't appreciate being dictated to, pointing out that his attitude demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to lead. Jack didn't limit his commands to me. He extended them to the employees, including Leo, a respected veteran of our company. I intervened when I heard Jack ordering Leo around, chastising my brother for his disrespectful approach. Jack retorted, questioning why he should show humility towards an employee, indicating he expected more respect as the future president. Nora joined in, supporting Jack's behavior and threatening me with termination if I continued to challenge him. Just then, a man interrupted our escalating argument. He introduced himself as the lawyer my father had engaged to manage his affairs, including his will of fact my father had mentioned to me before he passed away. This revelation piqued Jack and Nora's interest, especially when the topic of inheritance was brought up. They welcomed the lawyer, eager to hear about the fortune they anticipated inheriting. As they discussed the inheritance, Jack became emotional, inquiring about the rumored $500 million. Nora's excitement was palpable at the mention of such wealth, viewing the company and money as their ticket to a dream life. This declaration caused a stir among the employees, but Nora quickly silenced them, boasting about the impending moment of their ascension. This entire situation highlighted the differing values and priorities within our family, especially between Jack and Nora's materialistic view and my focus on honoring my father's legacy with respect and humility. The lawyer's arrival marked the beginning of a new chapter, one that would undoubtedly bring to light my father's true intentions for his inheritance and the future of the company. When the expectation was that the company and a $500 million inheritance would be passed to Jack, the revelation of the will caused quite a stir among the employees, one of whom couldn't contain his laughter. The cause of this commotion became clear as Jack, alongside Nora, learned from the will that the entire company was to be bequeathed to me, the eldest daughter. Jack's disbelief was palpable as he read the words aloud, prompting a shocked reaction from both him and Nora. His face turned white, and he protested vehemently, claiming there must be some mistake. The lawyer, present during this confrontation, affirmed the legality of the will, leaving Jack increasingly agitated and unable to accept the decision. He suggested our father had lost his mental acuity, declaring any decisions made in such a state to be invalid. This insult to our father's judgment was the last straw for me. I stood up to defend our father's honor and integrity, rejecting the notion that Jack could lead the company. My brother's indignation peaked as I openly questioned his qualifications to be president, pointing out his lack of contribution to the company's welfare. Jack and Nora argued that they had gone to great lengths to prepare for his presidency, citing the construction of a lavish mansion and their lifestyle as evidence of their readiness. I countered, emphasizing that these superficial measures did not equate to leadership or business acumen. Moreover, I revealed that our father had left me a letter outlining the financial support he had provided for Jack, including the costs of the mansion and other extravagances. This support was intended as an advance on Jack's inheritance, significantly reducing his share. Nora's reaction to this news was one of sheer panic, realizing the implications of the will in the letter. The entire scenario unfolded as a dramatic clash of expectations versus reality, highlighting the deep divisions within our family over the legacy of our father's company and the true qualities of leadership and responsibility. Upon hearing the mention of the $500 million inheritance, Nora's confusion and frustration were palpable. Wait, are you saying this entire inheritance is worth $500 million? Have we really spent so much already? It's not right that we got so little, she lamented. It was then that an employee, previously caught in a moment of laughter, stepped forward to clarify for Nora that the $500 million represented the company's valuation, not personal wealth accessible for inheritance. This distinction seemed to elude Nora, who struggled to grasp that company funds were not meant to be divvied up as family inheritance. I explained to Nora that indeed, the wealth of the company was intended for its growth and sustainability, not for personal inheritance, which meant that Jack's portion of any personal inheritance would be minimal. This revelation visibly shook her, unveiling a stark misunderstanding of the difference between company assets and personal wealth. At this juncture, Jack, struck by a sudden outburst of realization, or perhaps denial, appealed to the employees, questioning their support for me as president over him, claiming a birthright to leadership by virtue of charisma he believed he shared with our father. However, the silence that followed spoke volumes. None of the employees rallied to his defense. Leo, a veteran and respected figure within the company, then addressed Jack directly, contrasting the genuine charisma and foundational legacy of our father with Jack's misplaced arrogance. Leo's words struck a chord, highlighting the respect earned through actions and humility rather than entitlement. He pointed out Jack's absence and lack of contribution to the company's daily operations, dismissing Jack's excuses of networking as irrelevant to the real work needed to sustain and grow the business. In stark contrast, Leo praised my efforts to understand and contribute to the company from the ground up, acknowledging the sincerity and dedication I shared with our father. This endorsement from Leo and the collective nod of agreement from other employees underscored a communal recognition of my fit for leadership, based not on entitlement, but on commitment and respect for the legacy and future of the company. Moved by their support, I felt a renewed sense of responsibility and gratitude. The employees' recognition of my efforts and their trust in my leadership validated the path I had chosen to follow, one that honored my father's values and the collective ambition of our company's family. I expressed my gratitude to the employees, acknowledging the unexpected turn of events, but emphasizing my commitment to the company, a passion inherited from my father. I asked for their continued support, and their warm applause bolstered my resolve. I then asserted the value of every team member, stating anyone who overlooks this is not worthy of a leadership position, hinting that even a president could dismiss such an individual. This comment irritated Jack. "What are you saying? I'm your brother, and you're suggesting you'd fire me if I were president?" Jack protested, bewildered by my stance on competence over familial ties. He looked around for support, but the employees' cold responses signaled their agreement with my perspective. Feeling alienated, Jack and Nora quickly left the scene. Following this incident, Jack found himself unemployed, relying on the modest inheritance he had received, which dwindled rapidly. "Can you lend me money, Stella?" he later asked, but faced with his continued lack of initiative to secure employment, I was repelled by his dependency. I advised our mother against offering financial aid, noting his fall from grace and the abandonment by his once loyal friends. Nora, who had envisioned a life of luxury as the company president's wife, also found little sympathy from her social circle following these developments. Eventually, the financial strain forced them to sell their mansion, a temporary solution that provided a brief return to their former lavish lifestyle, but was not sustainable in the long term. Their savings evaporated, and when they finally considered employment, their lack of work experience and the reputation they had cultivated left them unemployable. This chain of events highlighted the consequences of entitlement and the lack of foresight, underscoring the importance of hard work, humility, and the value of maintaining good relationships with those around you. In the twists and turns of life, Jack found himself stepping into a new role, one vastly different from the future he once envisioned. He secured a part-time position at a convenience store, a stark contrast to his previous aspirations. This job, unfamiliar and challenging, placed him alongside younger colleagues who often noted his lack of proficiency. It was a humbling experience, one that forced Jack to confront the realities of a world he had previously overlooked. Nora, too, faced a significant shift in her daily life. The days of being a full-time housewife, once filled with leisure and luxury, were replaced by the realities of part-time employment. She took on a role as a cashier in a supermarket, working long hours for modest pay. This new chapter for Nora was marked by hard work and perseverance, a stark departure from her prior expectations. Meanwhile, I leveraged the insights and experience gained from my behind-the-scenes contributions to the company. With the support of Leo and our dedicated team, we focused on the company's growth, drawing strength from the challenges we faced. The ordeal with my brother not only tested our resolve, but ultimately united us more firmly than ever. Together, we aim to honor my father's legacy by expanding the business and fostering a sense of community and achievement among our employees. This contrast in paths highlighted the unpredictability of life and the importance of adaptability, humility, and the value of hard work. While Jack and Nora navigated their new realities, their journey underscored the lessons learned from facing adversity head-on. As for me, I remained committed to guiding our family business forward, cherishing the lessons from the past while building a brighter future for everyone involved, fulfilling a promise to bring joy to our father's memory. My daughter returned from a party at my in-laws' home in tears. When I inquired about her distress, she handed me a gift-wrapped package, urging me to see for myself the reason for her sorrow. Inside, I found something utterly inappropriate for a child. Fueled by concern, I approached the police to track down the individual responsible for this unsettling gift. Their investigation revealed Ed as the culprit, stirring a significant family uproar, leading to severe consequences for him. I'm in my late 28s, as is my husband, Mateo. We work at the same firm, where I was recruited mid-career, around my mid-28s. The decision to switch jobs came after an uncomfortable encounter at a previous workplace, where my then-boss made disparaging comments about my marital status at 28. Thankfully, my current employer places value on talent and ability rather than age or gender. Mateo, who directly supervised me upon my arrival, extended his support and kindness, leading to our rapid journey down the aisle and soon after, the birth of our daughter, a third grader with a passion for reading and a heart full of kindness. Mateo's sister, Sienna, has always been a challenging character in our lives. Despite a cordial relationship with my in-laws, Sienna and I have never seen eye to eye. Her disdain for me, stemming partly from our age difference and the circumstances of our marriage, manifested in cruel remarks and baseless judgments. She ridiculed the physical changes my body underwent with age and pregnancy, hoping to sow seeds of doubt in her brother's mind about me. Yet, her attempts to belittle me only reflected her own insecurities, which became apparent when she herself had a hurried marriage due to an unexpected pregnancy. Sienna's departure to another city post-marriage brought an unexpected peace to our lives, freeing me from her persistent taunts and allowing me to concentrate on our family without the shadow of her negativity. This complex web of family dynamics, marked by moments of conflict and reconciliation, underscores the enduring strength found in understanding and compassion, even in the face of adversity. After enduring a challenging labor, I brought a beautiful baby girl into the world. Though the process was difficult, Mateo's unwavering support and encouragement gave me the strength I needed. Our hearts swelled with joy as we heard our daughter's first cry, marking the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. Mateo's proud words of gratitude made the moment even more memorable, and together, we shed tears of happiness. 5 months later, Sienna welcomed a baby boy. However, her visits to our home, despite the 2-hour journey each way, often left me disheartened. She seemed to relish making unfavorable comparisons between our children, suggesting that my daughter's features were somehow less because of my age. I found myself at a loss for words, unable to engage with her petty criticisms while navigating the challenges of new parenthood. Sienna's behavior extended to taking advantage of our supplies, never bringing her own baby essentials, and yet conveniently taking ours under the guise of need. This pattern of insult followed by imposition perplexed me, but eventually her visits ceased. Mateo mentioned that her family had moved out of state due to his job's demands, bringing a temporary reprieve to our lives. However, the peace was short-lived. When our daughter began elementary school, we discovered that Sienna's son was also enrolled. Our return to the area was prompted by Mateo's job transfer, and I braced myself for potential turmoil. Despite my apprehensions, our daughter and her cousin formed a bond, with her compassionate nature shining through as she looked after him. Their cousinship flourished, even as they shared a classroom in 3rd grade. The highlight came when my daughter's talent was recognized, and her reading reflection won an award, celebrated by both our immediate and extended family. The achievement, published in the local newspaper, became a point of pride. This period coincided with a visit to the in-laws where the family gathered, possibly drawn by the news of my daughter's accomplishment. Amidst this family reunion, I pondered the complex dynamics at play, recognizing the bittersweet blend of challenges and triumphs that colored our relationship. At a rare family gathering, Sienna was visibly upset that our family became the focal point due to a simple misunderstanding over a book. Our children had exchanged books to read. Once they finished, they chose which book report to write together. My nephew took a particular liking to the book my daughter initially chose, and she graciously let him write about it. However, Sienna misconstrued the situation, accusing me of ghostwriting for my daughter. It turned out Sienna had been spreading false rumors among the school parents, suggesting I had used personal connections to influence a writing competition in favor of my daughter. The rumors distressed my daughter to the extent that she lost interest in her once cherished hobby of reading. My patience wore thin, not only with Sienna's baseless accusations towards me, but now her spiteful words were affecting my daughter too deeply. For the first time, I laid bare the entirety of Sienna's actions to Mateo, including the harsh words she hurled during my pregnancy and the times she took advantage of our hospitality. Mateo was incensed, declaring such behavior inexcusable, especially towards a pregnant woman, and likened Sienna's actions to theft. Together with his parents, Mateo confronted Sienna, who was shocked yet delighted to see them until she realized the purpose of their visit. The confrontation ended with her harboring even more resentment towards me, misinterpreting my intentions as malicious. Despite initially hoping for an apology, Sienna's calls were nothing but an outlet for her grievances. I decided to no longer entertain her negativity, directing her calls straight to voicemail, which, after a quiet month, ceased altogether. The tranquility that followed was a small solace in the midst of ongoing family discord. Initially, I assumed Sienna's silence was due to her losing interest, since I wasn't engaging with her attempts to contact me. However, I later discovered her silence was for a different reason altogether. In December, my in-laws decided to host a party for the children. A first for them, sparking my curiosity about the timing. Nonetheless, my daughter was thrilled at the invitation, her heart filled with sweet memories of past Christmas celebrations and an anticipation that her elementary school would follow suit. Unfortunately, the school had opted out, citing their stance on religious events. A decision that puzzled me given how it had morphed into a celebration beyond its religious origins. Despite some parents' reservations, I reassured my daughter that our own family celebration would more than make up for it, recalling the joy of our previous year's festivities where gift exchanges had brought smiles and laughter. Embracing the spirit, we set out to find a perfect gift within the $40 budget stipulated in the invitation. Our choice was a beloved picture book, selected with the hope of sharing its cherished stories with another. On the day of the party, my daughter, brimming with excitement, took the book and made her way to the in-laws, a journey made short by bus, but long in anticipation. I was momentarily at ease when my mother-in-law confirmed her safe arrival. However, peace was shattered minutes later when, amidst the solitude of my home office and Mateo away at work, the unexpected sound of the front door heralded something amiss. I found my daughter, a picture of despair, on our doorstep. The cause of her distress lay within a gift bag she handed to me, a bag that concealed a heartless prank. Tearing it open, I was confronted with the sight of a shredded newspaper, her own reading reflection visible among the ruins, accompanied by a menacing card inked in red, threatening our family's peace. A further look revealed a stuffed animal, once whole, now violently torn and stained with red, mimicking blood. The cruelty of the act was undeniable, far removed from the playful spirit of gift exchanges. This malicious gesture, aimed at my daughter during what should have been a joyful occasion, revealed a darkness that I had hoped would never touch our lives. When my daughter explained the situation, she revealed that Sienna was responsible for the disturbing gift. Despite a family agreement that adults would not personally prepare gifts for the children's focused party, Sienna chose to ignore this consensus. I hadn't accompanied my daughter to the party, assuming that the environment would be safe and welcoming, especially under the watchful eye of my mother-in-law, who, I believed, would have informed me if Sienna was present. This assumption proved false, highlighting Sienna's stealthy presence. Confused and seeking guidance, my daughter attempted to speak to her grandmother about the incident. But Sienna intercepted, falsely claiming the event was exclusive to children from missionary schools. This peculiar justification left us bewildered, especially since our family had no direct ties to such institutions, contrary to Sienna's insinuations. Feeling the need to protect my daughter and address the veiled hostility, I took the alarming gift to the police station, advocating for the seriousness of the threat it posed. Initially met with hesitance, my persistence paid off when a female officer recognized the gravity of our situation. She assured us she would address Sienna directly, reinforcing that threats, regardless of their source, warranted attention and action. This incident underscored a troubling realization: the reluctance of some within the law enforcement to intervene in domestic disputes unless they escalate to undeniable violence or threats. The ordeal left me contemplating the safety nets available to families navigating internal conflicts and the importance of vigilance in protecting our loved ones from harm. In the aftermath of the unsettling party incident, I was left pondering over the best ways to safeguard my daughter from unexpected emergencies. That evening, upon Mateo's return from work, I recounted the day's events, detailing the turmoil Sienna had caused. Enraged by his sister's malicious actions against our daughter, Mateo immediately contacted his parents to voice his concerns. Despite the party being hosted at their residence, they were surprised to hear of Sienna's involvement, explaining her possible sneaky entrance through an unlocked back door. My mother-in-law expressed regret for overlooking the guests' arrivals and departures due to her preoccupations with other family duties, while my father-in-law had been occupied at work. The responsibility of organizing the event had largely been left to the younger family members. We later learned that a police officer had sternly cautioned Sienna, warning her of the severe consequences should such behavior persist. This intervention, though firm, left my in-laws troubled by the prospect of Sienna's actions escalating to criminal levels. In response, a family meeting was convened to address the situation, attended by all involved parties. Sienna and her husband arrived last, her demeanor indicating a lack of remorse and a palpable resentment towards me for involving the authorities. Her husband, seated beside her, seemed taken aback, having been unaware of the reason for the summons. As the discussion unfolded, he was confronted with the full scope of Sienna's actions for the first time, expressing his sincere apologies on her behalf. When prompted by my in-laws to speak, Sienna's indifference not really underscored her failure to grasp the gravity of her actions, or the need for an apology. She defensively argued that the absence of an arrest vindicated her, a logic that left everyone dumbfounded. This meeting laid bare the complexities of family dynamics and the challenges of navigating relationships strained by misunderstanding and misdeeds. It underscored the necessity of communication, understanding, and, when needed, intervention to maintain harmony and protect the well-being of family members, especially the youngest. Sienna stood there, claiming innocence with an argument that left everyone speechless. A perfect example of shock, so profound, it renders you unable to speak. The room was thick with disbelief at her reasoning, underscoring the futility of merely scolding her. In an unexpected turn, her husband, Sienna's Mateo, announced his intention to divorce her. This revelation stunned us all, from the outside. Their marriage had appeared stable and happy. Mateo disclosed that his patience had been eroding over the years, not because of any single grievance like neglecting housework or childcare, which he had initially attributed to the stress of new parenthood. Rather, it was Sienna's continuous pattern of vanity-driven decisions that pushed him to his limit. A minor house fire due to her negligence, her insistence on their son attending a prestigious kindergarten to keep up appearances, and the subsequent moves to salvage their social standing after each setback painted a picture of a life disrupted by the pursuit of image over substance. Their series of relocations, Mateo explained, wasn't solely due to his job, but also to accommodate Sienna's desire to maintain a certain facade, especially after their son didn't get into their first-choice kindergarten. Eventually, they settled for a public elementary school, a decision made for their son's happiness, which Sienna agreed to only after much persuasion from Mateo. He confessed that the prospect of their son's well-being being compromised for Sienna's vanity was his breaking point, especially now that her spiteful behavior towards our family had come to light. Sienna, taken aback by the sudden talk of divorce, scrambled to offer apologies, framing her actions as mere jokes gone too far, misguided attempts at humor not meant to be taken seriously. However, her pleas fell on deaf ears. The realization that what constitutes a joke hinges on mutual trust and understanding, something severely lacking in her actions, underscored the gravity of the situation. Her husband's decision to divorce was not a spur-of-the-moment choice, but the culmination of years of overlooked grievances and a final stand for their son's well-being and a healthier family dynamic. "My daughter is fully aware of your actions and how they've affected me. It's unbelievable that she found humor in it, especially considering the threatening nature of your message. Such hostility would frighten even adults, let alone a child in 3rd grade." I confronted Mateo about his harsh critique of her behavior, questioning whether he would ever say such things to his own child. I pointed out that his actions were inconceivable for any parent. Not everyone who becomes a parent truly possesses parental instincts. Some people are simply not cut out for parenting. Upon seeing her tears, Mateo bluntly told her that crying wouldn't solve her problems at this stage in her life, and she should not expect sympathy to get her out of this situation. Yet, she cried harder, insisting on her innocence and questioning why she was the only one being blamed. She felt isolated, attributing the collective disapproval to her brother's decision to marry an older woman, mistakenly assuming that this should not affect judgments about her conduct and her own marital issues. Mateo was taken aback by her lack of understanding, and no one could console Sienna. The conversation had to be paused, and the meeting was eventually adjourned. Mateo had to escort a distraught Sienna back home. Their marriage, unfortunately, ended in a complicated divorce, largely due to her persistent denial and refusal to compromise. The situation escalated when their son, without any ill intentions, shared something he witnessed with his friends. This incident, spreading among parents, caused further uproar. Following a winter break, my nephew excitedly shared stories about a party with his older cousins at school, turning a classroom discussion into a showcase of holiday memories. This anecdote highlights how children innocently share experiences, oblivious to the complexities of adult conflicts and misunderstandings. During the holiday season, we celebrated with the exchange of gifts, and my nephew was thrilled to share stories about the new year and the video game consoles they received for Christmas. However, an incident occurred that left a deep impact on us. My mother gave my cousin a special gift, which I initially thought was unfair. When my nephew was asked to describe the gift he witnessed, his description of a damaged stuffed animal covered in what seemed like blood stirred concern among the school's teachers, eventually becoming a significant issue as the story spread among the parents. My daughter has been deeply affected by these events, unable to return to school since the party. Rumors circulated about her and her cousin's involvement in the incident, leading to unwanted speculation. Although the truth was indeed linked to the story, I had hoped the matter would not attract attention and that we could resolve it quietly, waiting for my daughter to feel ready to return to school on her terms. The story was not shared out of jest, but as a plea for help, highlighting the distress caused by his mother's harmful behavior. This revelation prompted Mateo to finally initiate the divorce proceedings, agreeing to her terms for a swift resolution. By then, She had become a notorious figure in the neighborhood, known for her intimidation tactics, which led to her being socially ostracized and even physically harassed. Determined to leave this turmoil behind and convinced that returning to her parental home would offer her a refuge, she agreed to the divorce, carelessly surrendering custody of her son with a callous remark about remarrying without the burden of children. In front of her son, she declared her indifference towards him, but he bravely countered her, affirming his preference for his father's care over her presence. Her departure was marked by a harsh exchange, with her son and Matteo dismissing her from their lives. She imagined a victorious return to her parents, only to be rejected and barred from entering their home, a painful consequence of her actions. Left with no support, she faced the harsh reality of her choices and the bridges she had burned along the way. In a challenging phase of her life, Sienna found herself in dire circumstances, resorting to desperate measures for basic needs like food and shelter. On nights when she couldn't secure a place to stay, she turned to borrowing money from unreliable and unsafe sources, leading to a spiraling accumulation of debt. Her financial burdens grew so heavy that no amount of odd jobs or part-time work could alleviate them, and eventually, Sienna vanished from her known life. Matteo and his family, upon facing this situation, chose not to pursue a missing persons report, rationalizing that Sienna, being an adult, had made her choices. They believed it was for the best, deciding they would not support her should she decide to return. This decision marked a turning point for my daughter, who has since been able to return to school independently. The absence of Sienna has surprisingly brought our families closer. Despite the upheaval, my daughter's former brother-in-law remained in the same area, ensuring that her cousin still goes to the same school. He has taken it upon himself to look after her, strengthening their bond and, by extension, the connection between our families. This newfound unity has seen us coming together, with my in-laws warmly embracing both my daughter and their grandson, stepping up as guardians whenever needed. With Sienna's departure, the lingering tension that once overshadowed our family interactions has dissipated, allowing us to forge a stronger, more trusting, and dependable family relationship. Our shared commitment to the well-being of our children has paved the way for a supportive and harmonious family environment. Hello, my name is Nora, and I'm 25 years old. 4 years ago, I married Elijah, an incredibly amazing individual who brings joy and laughter into every day of my life. His kindness and empathy are boundless, making every moment with him feel special. Unfortunately, this warmth and affection don't extend to his mother, Madison, my mother-in-law, who seems to have taken an immediate dislike to me from the very beginning. It's perplexing because Madison has always been protective of Elijah, her beloved son, which I guess is natural. However, it feels like she often goes too far in her actions. Madison has a talent for subtly undermining others in ways that might look innocent on the surface, but are, in reality, meant to provoke and upset, leaving you looking like the bad guy. It's a behavior pattern I'm sure many can relate to. Unfortunately for me, this person is my mother-in-law. My upbringing taught me to speak up against such behavior, a trait that Elijah found appealing in me. Our differing personalities somehow drew us closer, a classic case of opposites attract. Having a background in psychology, I can see through Madison's actions and understand her motives, though it doesn't make them any less challenging to deal with. Our strong personalities clash, evident from our first encounter when she criticized my eating habits in front of everyone, leaving me and the rest of the family in shock. Despite Elijah's defense and Madison's weak justification of concern for my health, I remained calm, not wanting to escalate the situation. Over time, these uncomfortable incidents became more frequent and intense, although I managed to form strong bonds with the rest of Elijah's family and friends. Even Kodak, Elijah's childhood buddy, welcomed me warmly. Yet Madison's attitude remained cold and dismissive, even trying to overshadow me on my wedding day with petty comments. Despite Madison's attempts to unsettle me, the love and acceptance from the rest of Elijah's family have been a great source of comfort. I've learned to navigate these challenges, keeping the peace while standing firm. Madison's behavior has become a predictable part of family gatherings. but I choose to focus on the positive relationships I've built within the family. What Madison was trying to say, albeit clumsily, was that she believed I had the potential to enhance my appearance significantly. She mentioned seeing a lot of herself in me, acknowledging me as a bright and capable young woman, albeit suggesting I could look more appealing for my age. She awkwardly complimented my beauty, but in a manner that felt backhanded. My father-in-law managed to mitigate her harsh behavior that day, yet the sting and resentment lingered within me. Going against my very essence, I struggled to stay quiet and passive. My usually lively spirit began to wane under the weight of her constant attempts to belittle me. Fast forward 4 years to a recent chapter in our ongoing saga. We found ourselves at Elijah's childhood home, invited over for dinner on a Sunday night by my mother-in-law. This invitation, surprisingly inclusive of Waylon, hinted at something important, arousing my suspicions, which were soon to be validated, revealing a more deliberate motive behind the dinner. As the evening progressed, Madison captured everyone's attention to announce something significant. With a paper in hand, she declared her birthday plans to travel to Bali, eliciting excitement from all present. The joyous announcement quickly soured for me when, upon my expressed enthusiasm, Madison bluntly stated that I was not included in the plans. She admitted to having canceled my ticket to avoid extra fees, a revelation that left me stunned and questioning her animosity towards me. The room plunged into chaos as protests erupted. Waylon and I sat in stunned silence amidst the heated exchange until Madison felt compelled to justify her actions. She explained, rather bluntly, her desire to spend her forthcoming years with those she truly valued, excluding me from this circle. Madison's harsh declaration, implying I wasn't considered part of the family, was both shocking and hurtful, revealing the depth of her rejection. This encounter was a stark reminder of the challenges I faced within this family dynamic, marked by exclusion and unspoken tensions. Madison's reasoning for excluding me from the family trip to Bali was based on the fact that I am not related by blood. Yet, this argument fell flat when considering Waylon, who is also not related by blood, but is warmly embraced as family. It's clear that family is not just about blood relations. It's about the bonds we form. Waylon has always been considered part of the family, a sweet baby angel, according to Madison. But when it comes to me, despite being married to Elijah, she hesitates to accept me, claiming discomfort with my presence on the trip. It was a painful reminder of my outsider status in her eyes, despite the love and commitment that bind me and Elijah. In that moment, standing up for myself became unavoidable. My firm refusal to accept her decision echoed loudly, capturing the room's attention and momentarily wiping the smugness off Madison's face. For years, I endured her coldness and attempts to undermine me, questioning whether she thought her actions were invisible to us. Her demand for respect in her home was met with my resolve to speak my truth before departing. Addressing Elijah, I expressed my unwavering love for him and my attempts to endure the hostility for the sake of our relationship. However, the realization that Madison would never accept me as part of the family was now undeniable. I encouraged Elijah to join the family trip despite everything, emphasizing the importance of family ties, including the complex relationship with his mother. Turning to Madison, I confronted her with the reality that her attempts to exclude me would not change the fact that I loved her son and was here to stay. Her obsession with trying to push me away was baffling, especially when all I had shown was kindness and patience. My declaration that I was not going anywhere, even if she did not want me in Bali or as part of the family, was a clear stance against her exclusionary behavior. Madison's threat in response to my words only underscored her fixation on driving a wedge between us. But my resolve was clear. I had reached my limit. If Madison chose not to see me as part of the family, so be it. My commitment to Elijah and our bond was unshakable, and no amount of resistance from Madison could change that. In that moment, I made it clear that my presence and support would always be there for Elijah, Julian, and even Waylon, but not for Madison. My words seemed to have finally taken effect as she stood there, mouth open, unable to find a rebuttal. With a sense of closure, I said goodbye to the family, shared a tender moment with Elijah, and assured him of my well-being despite his offer to drive me home. As I made my way to retrieve my forgotten purse from the kitchen, I encountered Madison once more. Her hostility was palpable as she demanded I leave quickly. Her inability to see me off with even a shred of decency was the final affirmation of her feelings towards me. Collecting my purse, I noticed a piece of paper beside it. Curiosity piqued. I discovered it was a letter from Madison to Waylon, expressing deep affection and considering him akin to a son. The letter revealed unexpected sentiments, hinting at a preference for Waylon over her own son, Elijah. This discovery was shocking, and as I delved deeper, the letter unfolded emotions and confessions that seemed almost too private and profound for an accidental find. Despite the initial invasion of privacy, the letter shed light on complexities within Madison that I hadn't anticipated. After reading the letter in full, I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, considering how best to address this sensitive information. The impact of this letter not only on me but potentially on the entire family was significant. Armed with this newfound insight, I returned to the dining room, met by a few concerned glances. Julian, sensing the tension and the distress caused by Madison's actions towards me, expressed his apologies for the unwelcome treatment I had endured. His words were a reminder of the family members who did see and appreciate my presence, despite Madison's efforts to marginalize me. The revelation within the letter, while initially unintended for my eyes, offered a pivotal moment for reflection and possibly understanding. It underscored the complex dynamics at play within this family, revealing hidden layers of emotion and allegiance that went beyond the surface conflicts. This moment was not just about confrontation, but about uncovering the deeper, more painful truths that lay buried under years of familial tension. As the conversation unfolded, Julian kindly offered to bring me along to Bali, suggesting that Madison's behavior was a result of her going through a tough time. He assured me he would talk to her, hopeful to amend the situation. Despite his good intentions, I reassured him that I was managing fine, but I also hinted at having come across some significant information that needed to be shared, particularly with Elijah and Waylon. Elijah looked worried, possibly fearing the stress had pushed me to consider leaving. He always sympathized with me over his mother's actions, amazed by my patience. With Madison absent, I was told she had retreated to deal with a headache and would not join us for a while. Her absence was frustrating, especially since the news I had to share was significant and ideally shared with her present. However, prompted by the family's encouragement and Elijah's visible anxiety, I decided to proceed. I explained that while preparing to leave earlier, I had found a letter in the kitchen. Holding the paper that had caught my attention, I began to read Madison's words to the room. The letter was addressed to Waylon, expressing her deep affection for him, likening him to a son, and acknowledging the love and care he had shown her over the years. The tone of the letter suggested a closeness to Waylon that seemed to surpass even her relationship with her own son, Elijah. This revelation, shared in Madison's absence, was not just about the surprise of her feelings for Waylon, but also hinted at a complex web of emotions and relationships within the family. The letter's contents, revealed to the family, offered a glimpse into Madison's heart, showcasing her affection for Waylon and perhaps unveiling underlying tensions that had affected her behavior towards me and her own son. This moment was a turning point, shedding light on the dynamics at play, and setting the stage for potential healing and understanding within the family. Discovering Madison's letter in the kitchen, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of sorrow for the revelations within. Madison expressed feeling distant from Elijah, believing their once strong bond had faded, attributing much of this estrangement to my presence in their lives. She accused me of diverting Elijah's affections away from her, leading her to a painful decision. Madison planned to revise her will, leaving everything to Waylon instead of Elijah, convinced that I had poisoned her relationship with her son. Her words conveyed a mixture of bitterness and resolve, hoping Waylon would understand her decision, despite acknowledging it might disappoint him due to his brotherly love for Elijah. Upon sharing the contents of the letter with the family, the room was engulfed in a storm of emotions. Julian struggled to hold back tears, while Waylon was visibly shocked. Elijah, however, was the epitome of outrage. incredulous at his mother's words and her decision to disinherit him out of spite for me. His frustration was palpable, and it was clear that Madison's actions and her toxic behavior had reached a breaking point for everyone involved. After the initial shock, an idea began to form, a way to address the situation head-on. As the week progressed and the day of the ballet trip arrived, Madison discovered a letter from Julian by her bedside. The letter suggested she take her time in the morning, assuring her that everything was taken care of and instructing her to meet the family at the airport. In a rush, Madison prepared herself and hurried to the airport, only to find herself unable to locate or contact anyone from the family. This moment of confusion and solitude was not just a consequence of her actions reflected in the letter, but also a pivotal point that might prompt Madison to reflect on the impact of her behavior on those she loves. The family's response to her letter and the orchestrated effort to address the situation hinted at a collective desire for change, signaling a potential turning point in the dynamics within the family. This scenario left Madison with a profound opportunity to reconsider her actions and the importance of mending the fractures within her family, inspired by the love and patience that had been extended to her, despite the challenges. After a lengthy 14-hour journey, Madison arrived in Bali, full of anticipation to join her family and kick off the celebrations. Upon landing, she immediately contacted Julian, perplexed by the silence and absence of her family. Julian's response was unexpected and chilling. They were not in Bali but had chosen to stay in Florida, a decision influenced by revelations Nora had shared. Madison was taken aback, unable to comprehend the turn of events. The confrontation escalated as Julian disclosed they were aware of Madison's intentions to disinherit Elijah, a secret uncovered through a letter Madison never intended for the family to see. Madison's attempts to deny and deflect only worsened the situation, as it was evident everyone knew the truth. The family's disappointment and disapproval were clear, marking a significant rift caused by Madison's actions and her evident disdain for Nora. Julian's stern rebuke left Madison grappling with the reality of spending her birthday alone in Bali, a consequence of her own making. The call ended with Madison's realization of her isolation, a moment for her to reflect on the impact of her behavior. Back in Florida, the tension gave way to relief and eventually laughter among the family. The absurdity of the situation, coupled with Madison's dramatic discovery that her plans had unraveled, sparked a moment of levity. It was a laughter born from the release of pent-up frustrations, and the ironic twist of Madison being the architect of her own solitude. This turn of events served as a poignant lesson for Madison, emphasizing the value of family unity and the destructive potential of harboring negativity. For the family in Florida, it was a moment to bond, laugh, and appreciate the strength of their relationships, unmarred by the discord Madison had attempted to sow. For the first time in what felt like ages, Madison experienced a genuine sense of embarrassment. Left to her own devices on a vacation she had envisioned sharing with her family, she found herself in solitude, her calls to Julian filled with pleas for company, or at least a reconsideration of the costly reservations she had made. Julian, however, remained firm in his stance, indicating that significant changes and new boundaries would be necessary for their marriage to continue once she returned. Madison's reaction to this situation was notably different from her typical behavior. She became apologetic and desperate. He made it clear to his mother that a dramatic shift in her attitude was non-negotiable if she wished to maintain a relationship with him, warning that any future disrespect would lead him to sever ties permanently. Waylon, too, recognized the need to alter his approach, realizing that his previous leniency had only facilitated Madison's harmful actions. As a result, Madison not only faced the loneliness of her trip, but also the realization that she was on the verge of losing the most important people in her life. Her relationships with each of them had become strained, and it was up to her to initiate the necessary changes for reconciliation. In the midst of this, I communicated to Madison the need for space to consider whether forgiveness was possible on my part, given everything that had transpired. Her response, filled with apologies and requests for me to intervene on her behalf with the men in her life, was met with my refusal. I made it clear that the consequences she was facing were the result of her own actions, and it was her responsibility to rectify the situation. Madison's journey towards mending the fractured relationship she'd caused is ongoing. It's a path filled with challenges, requiring her to reflect on her actions and genuinely strive for improvement. The hope is that through this difficult process, Madison will learn valuable lessons about respect, empathy, and the importance of nurturing the bonds that truly matter. After my brother Ethan got married and left our family home, my life took a significant turn. I found myself living with just my mother. Despite my deep appreciation for how she raised me, recent tensions have strained our relationship. Her sudden coldness, particularly after I've been financially supporting her, has been a tough pill to swallow. It hurts even more knowing Ethan and his wife, Alice, influenced her behavior towards me. This betrayal has fueled a strong resentment within me, pushing me to prove myself more fiercely. My name is Ava, and at 27, I'm facing these family dynamics amidst my own personal challenges. Since my father's death a few years back and with Ethan moving on, it's been just Mom and me. But living with her hasn't been easy. Once I began earning, she stopped working and seemed to expect me to serve her every need, from meals on demand to unexpected financial requests. Her constant demands have tested my patience to its limits. Despite the turmoil, the thought of leaving her has crossed my mind multiple times. Yet, I've never seriously pursued it. She's all the family I have left, and she did raise Ethan and me by herself. Alice has explicitly stated she won't take in my mother, leaving me as her sole caregiver by default. But being her daughter doesn't mean I can endure endless demands without feeling the strain. Today, for instance, I confronted her about missing money, which led to a heated exchange. She admitted to taking it without asking, justifying her actions by reminding me of her sacrifices. This conversation highlighted a recurring pattern. Whenever I address my concerns, she deflects with reminders of her role in my upbringing. While I'm grateful for her efforts, my tolerance has its limits. I'm financially stable, capable of supporting both of us without compromising my lifestyle. However, the principle of the matter weighs heavily on me. It's become clear that setting boundaries is necessary, not just for my well-being, but for our relationship's health. In this midst of these challenges, Ethan and Alice's unexpected visit further complicated matters. Their presence and attitude only deepened my resolve to stand up for myself, despite the complexities of family loyalty and obligation. Navigating these waters has been anything but easy. Yet, this journey has been a profound lesson in self-reliance, setting boundaries, and seeking happiness amidst familial obligations. As I continue to find my way, I remain committed to caring for my mother while also prioritizing my own well-being and future. Every time I share my concerns with my mom, it ends up the same way. She counters with, "I'm the one who raised you," or "remember who you have to thank for your upbringing." These words always leave me at a loss for words. I fully recognize the hard work and dedication my mom put into raising me, which makes it all the more difficult to argue with her. Despite earning a good salary, enough to comfortably support both of us with an extra $28,000 a month without it affecting my way of life, I've always felt there should be limits to what my mom can demand from me. Then one day, after coming back from work, I was surprised to find Ethan and Alice at my place. It had been ages since we last spoke, not since our dad's funeral. "Looks like you haven't changed a bit. Still surrounded by that gloomy aura," Ethan commented, highlighting a shift from the childhood days when he would belittle me. "Why are you even here, Ethan?" I asked, trying to keep my composure. He casually mentioned visiting our parents' house, as if it was the most natural thing. "You know, after Dad passed and we had to sell the family home, I've been renting this apartment." "It's not just our family home anymore," I reminded him, trying to assert some boundaries. Alice didn't waste time adding her 2 cents. "Ava, you're always so tense. With that attitude, you'll end up alone." Her words, void of any remorse, just like Ethan's, made it clear they hadn't changed. Disheartened, I retreated to my room after a solitary dinner, overhearing snippets of their conversation about me. Since that visit, Ethan and Alice began dropping by more frequently, acting as if they owned the place, which only added to my frustrations. "Ethan, seriously, what's the idea here?" "This is my space," I eventually confronted him, unable to tolerate their intrusions any longer. His dismissive response about wanting to see Mom more often did nothing to ease the tension. Despite their prolonged absence and sudden return, their casual disregard for my feelings and personal space was unsettling. This confrontation made me question their motives and consider setting clearer boundaries to protect my peace and independence. Since our father's passing, Ethan had barely made an effort to connect, and now he was dismissing my concerns as if they were nothing. "This is not about you," he said nonchalantly when I questioned his sudden presence. Hunger was his next complaint, demanding I cook immediately as if I had no other concerns. "Can't you see? This is my home? Why do you act as if you own it?" I wondered aloud, frustration mounting. Alice, joining in with her own demands, asked for a cake as if it were the most natural thing. "Ava, you're not busy, are you? Go buy it for us," she said, with my mother echoing her sentiment, calling me lazy. It struck me as odd how Alice, who once couldn't stand being around my mother, was now cozying up to her, suggesting a hidden agenda. Ethan's assertion of his role as the eldest son, responsible for our mother, only added to my suspicions. Their behavior hinted at a plan I couldn't quite grasp, but I sensed it was nothing positive. After a few tense days, my mother dropped a bombshell, declaring she could no longer bear living with me and intended to move in with Ethan and Alice. Her words left me reeling, unable to comprehend how the dynamics had shifted so drastically. The same couple who had previously distanced themselves from my mother were now eager to welcome her into their home. The irony was not lost on me. Ethan and Alice's arrival only added to the confusion. Ethan's rhetoric about his duty as the eldest son to care for our mother seemed hollow, especially considering their long absence. Alice, who had once vehemently opposed the idea of living with my mother, was now fully on board with this new arrangement. Their sudden change of heart and the willingness to alter their stance on living with my mother raised many questions. It became clear that their motivations were far from altruistic, leaving me to ponder the real reasons behind their sudden interest in family unity. The sudden shift in their attitude was baffling and irritating. My brother announced, "Mom's moving in with us, and frankly, we don't need you anymore. Just leave." It was shocking. After years of me shouldering the responsibility for our mother, this abrupt dismissal felt like a betrayal. Despite Ethan's often arrogant demeanor, I couldn't shake off the feeling that he and Alice were plotting something unsavory. My mother, despite her sharp wit, was the only family I truly valued. The last thing I wanted was to be caught up in any forthcoming mess. Determined to get to the bottom of things, I confronted my mother. "Don't you see there's something off here? Ethan and Alice suddenly showing up and now this?" Her response was dismissive, accusing me of being the odd one out. Her next words cut deep, suggesting I was nothing more than a burden. My heart sank. After years of support and care, to be dismissed so coldly was more than I could bear. In that moment, any remaining affection I had for my mother evaporated. The realization that my efforts and sacrifices were so easily overlooked was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet they seemed to take joy in belittling me, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. I vowed to myself they would regret their actions, but for now, I needed to bide my time. As I announced my departure, my brother couldn't hide his glee, assuming he'd won. "Looks like you're finally leaving. Mom's going to be so relieved." Their laughter echoed as they reveled in their supposed victory. It was hard not to let my anger show, but I knew that revealing my plans would only give them the upper hand. From that day, Ethan and Alice made themselves at home in my apartment, acting as though I was a ghost among them. Their disregard for my presence was infuriating, yet it provided me with the perfect cover to lay the groundwork for my plan. They were oblivious to the fact that their actions had set the stage for their downfall. In their arrogance, they had underestimated me, a mistake I intended to use to my advantage. Ironically, their indifference played right into my plans, making my exit smoother than expected. A week later, as I was gearing up to move out, Ethan broke the silence with "Today's the day. Ava, we'll take over caring for Mom, so you're free of any burdens." His words meant to sting didn't touch me. I responded with a calmness that seemed to throw him off balance. My mother, never one to miss a chance for a parting shot, expressed her hope that I'd find someone to marry, hinting at a societal judgment for remaining single. As Ethan and Alice chuckled at her remark, I kept my composure, affirming my decision to prioritize my happiness and independence from now on. I've never relied on you for happiness, and I'm leaving by choice, I stated, cutting through their mockery. As the doorbell announced the arrival of the movers, I directed them to clear out not just my belongings, but all the household items I had purchased over the years. The shock on Ethan, Alice, and my mother's faces was palpable, as they realized that everything from the TV to the kitchen appliances was mine to claim. My mother's protests and Ethan's anger escalated as they confronted me, unable to comprehend my actions. "How can we live here without any of these essentials?" Ethan demanded, his voice rising in frustration. I stood my ground, reminding them that I was the one who had invested in all these comforts they took for granted. Everything here was bought with my money, for my home. "You've decided to live together, so I'm sure you'll figure it out," I told them, firm in my resolve. Their outrage and disbelief were clear, but I didn't waver. This was the moment I reclaimed my independence, leaving behind the toxic environment they had created. As I watched the movers carry out the last of my possessions, I knew I was closing a chapter filled with manipulation and ungratefulness. Ahead of me lay a path to a new beginning, one where I could finally live for myself, unencumbered by the expectations and demands of those who failed to appreciate me. It seems there's been a big misunderstanding. Everything in this apartment, from the furniture to the appliances, was purchased by me. It appears Ethan $28,000 was under the impression that our mom had financed it all thanks to an inheritance from our dad. But the truth is, I've been the one supporting our mom, not the other way around. I've been contributing $28,000 monthly, making sure she has everything she needs. "Ethan, it looks like you got the wrong end of the stick, thinking there was a hefty $5," When I pointed this out, Ethan was taken aback. He had convinced himself and Alice that moving in was beneficial because they believed there was an inheritance from Dad that would cover everything. "Wait, are you saying all this time the support was coming from you, not an inheritance?" Ethan asked, baffled. My mother, caught in her own web of tales, had to admit she had exaggerated about the inheritance to impress them. She thought it would somehow make living together more appealing if they believed there was a financial cushion to fall back on. Realizing there was no inheritance left, Ethan's frustration was palpable. The idea of living together, which seemed so attractive when they believed there was a financial gain, suddenly lost its appeal. I only suggested we live together to keep up appearances, not because there was any real benefit to us, my mother confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. This revelation hit Ethan hard. The pretense of familial duty and the anticipated inheritance had clouded his judgment. Now faced with the reality that the financial safety net he imagined was non-existent, his earlier enthusiasm evaporated. "So, you're saying all the comforts of this apartment, everything we've been enjoying, was because of Ava's support?" he asked, disbelief coloring his tone. In a desperate attempt to salvage the situation, Ethan's wife suggested maybe Ava could still live with us. It could work out for the best. But the suggestion only highlighted the opportunistic nature of their earlier offer. It was clear now that their sudden interest in living together was motivated by self-interest, not genuine concern. The charade was over. The veil lifted, revealing the true colors of those I had called family. It was a sobering realization, one that marked the end of any illusions I had about where we stood. As I looked at them, their faces a mix of confusion and realization, I knew that moving forward, my path would be one I would tread without them. "So, Ava, you really should consider moving in with us," Ethan suggested, with a sudden warmth in his voice that wasn't there before. It was clear they were now speaking out of convenience, seeing me as a solution to their problems. I couldn't help but dismiss their proposal outright. "Are you serious? Expecting me to live with you after everything? That's laughable. I've chosen to focus on myself from here on out. Your troubles? They're yours to deal with, not mine," I told them, my decision firm. As I spoke, the energy seemed to drain from them. They slumped, their faces a picture of defeat. "Take care of yourselves," I said, more to myself than to them, as I closed the door on that chapter of my life. With the lease on the apartment ending soon, and in my name, they'd be forced to find somewhere else to live. That wasn't my concern anymore. A week into my new beginning, my phone rang. It was my mother, pleading for help. "Ava, please, I can't manage on my own." "Can't you come back?" she asked, desperation clear in her voice. But the bridge had been burned. "Why didn't you ask Ethan and Alice for help?" "It sounds like they've made their bed," I replied, my tone final. Hanging up and blocking her number, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The news eventually reached me that Ethan and Alice, along with my mother, were evicted from the apartment. With their savings depleted on a less-than-ideal new place, and daily arguments becoming the norm, their situation seemed dire. Ethan was now the sole breadwinner, struggling to make ends meet. As for me, distancing myself from the toxicity had allowed me to save more and invest in my own well-being. The sacrifices I had made in the past were behind me. Now, I was paving a path toward a happier, more fulfilling life on my terms,